Chapter 682, Zhongxian appears. Pick another condition. Seeing that the other party was actually interested in them, Luo Chichi frowned and waved her hands in disapproval. If not for the other party being the young master of the Beast Hall, she would surely have slapped that thought out of him by now. They were both 5-star master teachers, not to mention Yu Feiya was the princess of Hongyuan Empire, so how dare a mere 4-star beast tamer try to take advantage of them? But regardless, the two of them didn't know much about beast taming, and the other party seemed to be the vindictive type who would get back at them if they were to offend him. Thus, Luo Chichi chose to hold herself back. Pick another condition? Not expecting the two ladies to reject even a meal, Qin Zhong frowned. He took pride in his looks and identity, and very few had ever rejected his invitation before. They were the ones who had requested something of him, and yet, not only did they reject his invitation, they even had such displeased looks on their faces. What did they mean by this? They were thinking too highly of themselves. Qin Zhong harumphed coldly. It's just a casual meal, surely there's no need for you to turn me down like this, right? If you were to continue acting so coldly and distant, I fear that it'll be difficult for you to get a good aerial spirit beast when you arrive at the Beast Hall. Luo Chichi narrowed her eyes. What do you mean by that? Are you trying to threaten us? Do you know the consequences of threatening a master teacher? Threaten? How could I possibly dare to threaten a master teacher? I'm just giving you a word of advice out of goodwill on my part. Besides, you are the ones who asked to hitch a ride. Is this the kind of attitude one should put on when asking for a favor? Qin Zhong chuckled playfully as he gazed at the duo. I have already stated my price, it's your choice to accept it or not. In any case, I am in no hurry. As long as I am here, I doubt anyone in the entire Beast Hall will be willing to offer you a ride. Seeing the other party acting so despicably, how could a person with an explosive temper like Yu Feiya possibly hold herself back? Sneering coldly, she stepped forward so as to teach that shameless man a lesson and pummel into him the fact that there were some people in the world he should never offend. But at that moment, the sound of dirt being overturned sounded from the huge depression below. Goo 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 goo. Dirt was hurled continuously into the air, as if a gigantic bubble was trying to break out from the earth. Could it be? Yu Feiya and Luo Chichi's bodies immediately stiffened. At this moment, they couldn't be bothered with that arrogant fellow anymore. Their eyes stared intently at the depression, willing for the person they were hoping for to appear. Could he really be alive? Was he going to create another miracle as he always did and climb out from the ground alive? The duo's eyes turned crimson at that thought. They had spent 5 entire days here, and in this duration, the spark of hope they once held onto slowly withered into despair. And right when they were about to let go of the final sliver of hope, such an incident occurred. Gulong. Just as their hearts were hanging with anxiety, the dirt on the surface of the ground finally broke open, and a massive head emerged. Puppet. The bodies of the two ladies became tense, and their faces immediately flushed ghastly pale. They'd thought that it would be Zhongshe, but who knew that it would be this puppet instead? Who? The puppet climbed out from the hole and stood up. Then, it scanned the surroundings warily, as though waiting for someone. Seeing that there wasn't the slightest injury on this puppet, Luo Chichi and Yu Feiya felt as if a knife had torn through their hearts. Zhongshe had sacrificed his own life so that the puppets would remain buried for all eternity to come, but it seemed like his sacrifice had ended in futility. On the other hand, Qin Zhong, who was waiting for the two beauties before him to submit, saw that the duo had ignored him and turned their attention to the depression instead. Frowning, he turned his gaze over as well, and his eyebrows shot up. What the heck was that fellow? Why would he suddenly appear from the ground? Even though Qin Zhong was a 4-star beast tamer, the matter regarding the otherworldly demonic tribe was one of the greatest secrets of the continent, so he didn't know too much about them. Not to mention, the otherworldly demon puppets did resemble humans in some respects, albeit being slightly larger. A normal otherworldly demon was only 2 meters tall. The only reason the otherworldly demon which Zhongxian met in Myriad Kingdom City reached 3 meters and was less humanly was because it was a hybrid between the otherworldly demonic tribe and a spirit beast. Even though it was rare to meet someone 2 meters tall, it wasn't something to make a fuss over. Isn't he just a little taller than average? He looks rather weak. Do these two ladies prefer this type of man? Seeing how the two beautiful ladies before him had ignored him and were getting excited before that tall man, Qin Zhong's face reddened, and a glint flashed across his eyes. That fellow is just a little taller than average. Let me show you that height is nothing at all. With such thoughts in mind, Qin Zhong stepped forward, and with a proud gaze, he said, I am Qin Zhong, a 4-star beast tamer from the Beast Hall. My friend over there, may I know how to address you? Is it convenient for you to come up to have a chat? Just as Luo Chichi and Yu Fei were overwhelmed by grief and shock, they suddenly heard those words and froze. Was there something wrong with this fellow's head? Chat with an otherworldly demon? How could Qin Zhong be sure that he knew how to speak human language? Seeing the dumbfounded expression on the duo, Qin Zhong thought that he was on the right track, and his eyes lit up. Turning his gaze back to the tall fellow below, he realized that the latter wasn't even looking at him. Furious, he howled, What? Are you looking down on me? Fine, I'm interested to see what you are capable of anyway. After saying this, the green leaf-winged dragon beast roared and flew into the sky. Qin Zhong leaped onto the back of his tamed beast, and the duo swooped downward to the tall fellow below. You chose that tall fellow over me. Fine, I'll beat him up right now and let you know how bad your eyes are. Halfway through the arc, Qin Zhong leaped off from the spirit beast. His robe fluttered along with the tug of the wind as he charged toward that tall fellow. He had used his strongest movement technique in this leap. At this moment, he looked like he was gliding through the air, creating a dashing scene. Through this movement technique, he had incited the excited screams of innumerable beautiful ladies. Halfway through his movement, he raised his gaze to peek at the two beautiful ladies, hoping to see eyes gleaming with excitement and admiration. But who knew that those two ladies would actually shake their heads in pity and close their eyes? Closing your eyes? Is my performance insufficient too, or you? Just as Qin Zhong was perplexed by the bizarre situation, he had already arrived before the puppet. Before he could do anything, he suddenly saw a huge fist rapidly expanding before his eyes. Pang! A powerful force struck his body, and he suddenly felt a stifling sensation in his chest. Blood spurted profusely from his mouth, and his figure rapidly retreated through the air. Strength that exceeds transcendent mortal 8 Dan. Qin Zhong's vision turned dark, and he nearly went insane. The strength of the otherworldly demon puppets was derived from their physical bodies, making it nearly impossible for Qin Zhong to accurately gauge the other party's true strength and capability. Nevertheless, taking pride in his ability, he'd thought that it would be a piece of cake for him to take down the other party. Never had he expected for the other party to be so powerful. It felt like he was standing against the raging storms of a boundless ocean. Even his father, the Hall Master of the Beast Hall, a transcendent mortal 8 Dan pinnacle expert, didn't wield such prowess. But if that was the case, wouldn't that mean that the other party's strength had already exceeded transcendent mortal 8 Dan? How could that be? He had met all of the transcendent mortal 8 Dan experts of Huanyu Empire, but he didn't recall one of them being of such tall stature. Only after spurting several large mouthfuls of blood did he finally feel the stifling sensation in his chest alleviate slightly. His back crashed heavily against the edge of the depression, and the bones throughout his entire body rattled. Just a single fist and he was already severely injured. If not for the several life preservation artifacts that he had activated in the midst of his trajectory, he just might have died from that single fist. But even so, the injuries he had sustained would take at least a month or two to heal. Struggling to open his eyes, Qin Zhong was just about to summon his winged dragon beast to take him away when he saw yet another tall fellow climbing out from the hole, and the both of them stood respectfully beside the hole. Are they trying to welcome someone? Seeing the attitude of the two tall fellows, Qin Zhong was taken aback. However, the bizarreness didn't stop here. After which, more tall fellows emerged from the hole, and they stood on the both sides of the hole. With their heads lowered, it seemed like they were waiting patiently for the arrival of some important person. Finally, after the appearance of the 18th tall man, a sedan chair slowly emerged from the hole. Seated on top of the sedan chair was a young man, and upon seeing the sunlight outside, he stretched his back lazily. It seemed like he had been deprived of sunlight for many days and was delighted to see it once more. to be carried by 4 transcendent mortal 8 Dan experts while another 18 stood at attention to welcome him. Who in the world was this fellow? And why did he appear from the ground? Qin Zhong widened his eyes in bewilderment. For an instant, he forgot about the overwhelming pain he was suffering. At that moment, an excited call suddenly came from above, and 2 figures immediately leaped into the depression. Zhongshe. Luo Chichi and Yu Fei'er had thought that they would never meet this young man ever again. Who could have thought that he would actually appear before them in such a fashion? Unable to hold back their agitation, they rushed forward without any hesitation. The depression was around 40 meters deep, but this height was nothing to a Cosmos Bridge realm expert. Little Qi and Princess Fei'er, what are you two doing here? Naturally, the man seated on the sedan was Zhongxian. After 5 days of effort, the puppets had finally unearthed a passageway for him to leave the underground chamber. In any case, since their leader was in his hands, these fellows had no choice but to obey his words. Thus, he had them prepare a sedan chair to carry him up. Zhongxian thought that after so many days, the 2 ladies would have already left. As such, he was surprised to see them here. You are fine. After confirming that the other party was indeed Zhongshe, Luo Chichi and Yu Fei'er were finally able to release the huge burden that had been weighing down on their hearts over the past few days. But after recovering from their agitation, many doubts started to emerge in their minds. Wasn't he chased by the puppets when they left? Why would the puppets be carrying him out now? More importantly, with the collapse of the underground chamber, the supply of oxygen inside was cut off entirely. How did he manage to survive for so long? I'm fine. It's a long story. Zhongxian waved his hands. I thought that I would surely die back then, but I happened to activate an artifact that my teacher left for me then. Through the effects of the artifact, not only did I survive the collapse, these puppets were also put under my control. Honestly speaking, I was truly lucky to have survived this. There was no way he could talk about the heart. Otherwise, he would have to explain how he managed to seal the heart in his Book of Heaven's Path too. Thus, he chose to push everything onto that imaginary teacher of his. In any case, the duo had seen his teacher's astounding performance back at the cleansing lake too, so it wouldn't be too difficult for them to believe this either. Zhongshe. Luo Chichi and Yu Fei'er glanced at one another before heaving a sigh of relief simultaneously. The image of Zhongshe descending for the sky and resolving the huge catastrophe with the single throw of a shoe was still inscribed deeply in their minds. Not even Mo She would have been capable of doing the same. It wasn't entirely inconceivable for that legendary figure to tame all of the puppets given his means. It's enough that you are fine. Since a high-ranked master teacher was involved in this matter, they knew that it wouldn't be appropriate for them to pry into this matter. Thus, they decided to put this topic away. Yuan, seeing the duo putting aside the matter, Zhongxian heaved a sigh of relief. At that moment, he suddenly noticed Qin Zhong, whose face was swollen red from the punch earlier, and he frowned in confusion. Who is this fellow? Chapter 683. Can you fly? He is. After a moment of hesitation, Luo Chichi began recounting the matters earlier. You wish to get an aerial spirit beast to travel back to Hongyuan Empire? Zhongxian nodded in agreement. Indeed, 5 days have passed. I really should hurry to Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy. After leaving the cleansing lake, Zhongxian had spent 3 days in a coma, 1 day in the underground chamber, and 5 days digging a path out of it. All in all, it had been 9 days since then. If he didn't hurry now, he might miss the entrance examination to the academy. While he didn't think that it was truly necessary for him to enroll at the Master Teacher Academy, considering the history behind it, the latter must have a huge collection of books. If he could gain access to them, he could potentially raise his cultivation quickly. Luo Chichi nodded. Since teacher is fine, let's return together. The reason why they wanted to rush back earlier was to save Zhongshe. But while the latter was fine now, it was indeed about time for them to return too. All right. Getting up from the sedan chair, Zhongxian had the puppets march back down the hole before burying it entirely. On the surface, it seemed like Zhongxian was ordering them to return to the underground chamber, but in truth, Zhongxian's soul was waiting below to place them into his storage ring. As these fellows were lifeless puppets, he could carry them along with him in his storage ring. Since he could control these fellows through the heart, it would be waste for him not to keep them around. With this huge army of Saint Realm puppets, he could easily destroy even a real Saint Realm cultivator. With this, his safety in Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy would be assured, and he wouldn't have to keep relying on Yangsha either. But of course, any matter regarding otherworldly demons was of grave importance, and it was best to keep Luo Chichi and Yu Feiya in the dark regarding this matter as well. Not to mention, there was an outsider lying not too far away. This was the reason why he decided to go through so much trouble to keep his action of storing them in his storage ring a secret. This way, he could avoid unnecessary trouble in the future. As for whether the experts of the academy would be able to find the puppets after they arrived, that was none of his business. After all, the puppets were capable of moving. The experts couldn't possibly expect for the puppets to wait patiently at the same spot. Having made up his mind to leave, Zhong Xian immediately turned to the battered Qin Zhong and said, "Your name is Qin Zhong, right? We wish to hitch a ride on your spirit beast, so I ask of your cooperation." "All right." Struggling to his feet, Qin Zhong looked at Zhong Xian as a hint of envy and rage flashed across his eyes. The reason why he was beaten up like that was due to this fellow. He had no idea who those tall fellows were, but considering the respect they had shown to this young man, it was likely that he was the mastermind behind his current pathetic plight. "Humph, I may be no match for you here, but let's see how well you'll fare when we are in the air." Qin Zhong swallowed his pill and drove his cultivation. A moment later, he felt that his injuries had alleviated slightly. Looking at the trio before him now, even though they hadn't utilized their zhenqi, so he was unable to determine their exact cultivation, considering their age, it was impossible for them to have reached sainthood. And as long as one hadn't reached sainthood, one would be incapable of flight. "There is no lodging room on top of my spirit beast, and the wind has been strong lately." Qin Zhong stood up and leaped onto the back of his tamed beast while he kind-heartedly warned them to be careful. On the inside, he was snickering gleefully. "That's no problem," Zhong Xian replied nonchalantly. "Who?" The green-leaf-winged dragon beast flapped its wings and rose up into the air. Even though there was no lodging room on top of the aerial spirit beast, its back was rather spacious. It wasn't cramped even with all four of them standing on top. The spirit beast flew higher and higher, and soon, they were soaring through the clouds. Due to the incredible speed of their flight, a cold gale pressed tightly against their skin. The group had to gather their zhenqi to form a protective layer to ward off the strong wind. Seeing the look of nonchalance on the young man, Yu Feiya couldn't help but ask worriedly, "Zhong Xian, that fellow obviously harbors malicious intentions. Why did you still ask to hitch a ride?" Even she could tell that the beast tamer was up to no good. If it was her, she would have ignored the other party and left immediately. Besides, they had nothing urgent on at the moment. At the very most, they could just walk to the beast hall. There was no need for them to take this risk in the first place. After all, they would be helpless if the other party were to try something in midair. "Aren't you normally extremely intelligent? So, why did you make such an elementary mistake?" Luo Chichi chuckled. "Feiya, just watch on. Teacher knows what he is doing." Yu Feiya was unaware of it, but Luo Chichi had once witnessed Zhong Xian flying in the sky. Since Zhong Xian chose to hitch a ride, he must have a plan in mind. Zhongsha getting done in by someone else? You must be kidding. In the times accompanying him, Luo Chichi had only seen him doing others in. Not once had she witnessed him being done in before. Damn it. Seeing the two cold-faced ladies who were unwilling to even spout a single word to him getting friendly with that average-looking fellow, Qin Zhong's face twisted in anger. As the young master of the Beast Hall, he grew up with a golden spoon in his mouth. Not to mention, he was also blessed with good looks and considerable talent, so he had always been admired and respected by others. When had he ever allowed another to hitch a ride even after he was pummeled? This was a huge humiliation. "Little brother, were those tall fellows from before your subordinates?" But even so, Qin Zhong knew that making a move without knowing the background of his enemy was nothing short of recklessness. The tall fellow whom he faced possessed might exceeding that of a transcendent mortal 8-dan expert. While he understood that the wiser decision was to stay out of the other party's way, He was reluctant to simply let this matter go, especially after the humiliation he had suffered. Thus, he decided to first attempt to understand the other party's background before deciding on what he should do. "No, he's just a friend who was sending me out," Zhongxian replied nonchalantly. "A friend?" Qin Zhong frowned. "Then may I know how to address you, and where do you come from?" This question was a little more direct. "I'm not anything much, so I don't think Qin Gongzi will have heard of me," Zhongxian replied. "Not anything much?" Qin Zhong sneered coldly. That was true as well. He had met nearly all of the renowned young geniuses of Huanyu Empire, but he had never met the young man before him. Thus, it was unlikely for him to be a formidable figure. Nevertheless, he should still tread carefully. "Then, may I know if you have studied the way of master teachers?" He continued asking. "Yes, I have. It has been around half a year since I started learning the way of master teachers." Zhongxian scratched his head in embarrassment. He was speaking the truth. Less than a half a year had passed since he first took the master teacher examination in Tianwu Kingdom. Half a year. Considering how vast and profound the way of master teachers is, it is indeed difficult for you to learn anything substantial in half a year. Even so, you need not feel bad about yourself. Considering how the two beautiful ladies were master teachers, he thought that this young man would be a master teacher as well. However, after hearing that the latter had only been in the occupation for half a year, he couldn't help but sneer in derision inside. Every single occupation of the 9 paths had a whole heritage of knowledge that one had to devote one's entire life to studying before they could master it. This was especially so for master teachers, as the #1 occupation in the world. Half a year. Even at best, he could only be an apprentice now. Since the other party wasn't a master teacher, there would be no need for Qin Zhong to hold himself back then. "Judging from how valiant little brother looks, could the reason you studied the way of master teachers so late is because you went to study other occupations? What about pill forging? Are you well versed in it?" Qin Zhong continued asking. "I have studied it for a few days," Zhongxian replied. "A few days? That's such a pity. Learning pill forging can temper one's mind, allowing one to focus their concentration and cultivate better. You lost an opportunity to cultivate a good habit." Qin Zhong sighed before continuing. "What about beast taming?" "I have dabbled in it a bit," Zhongxian answered. "Beast taming can allow one to come into contact with nature. Dabbling in it a bit won't be sufficient for you to learn anything significant. You lost an opportunity to become closer to nature." Qin Zhong shook his head. "What about medicine, smithing, and formation?" Soon, Qin Zhong went through all of the upper 9 paths, but it seemed like the other party wasn't well versed in any of them. Eventually, after confirming that the other party hadn't achieved anything substantial in any occupation, his confidence immediately burst through the roof. Most formidable experts would choose to take on several occupations and persevere in them. Yet, this fellow only learned each of them for a few days. Considering his lack of patience, it was certain that he wouldn't be able to achieve anything great. Since that was the case, what did he have to worry about? Chuckling lightly, Qin Zhong instructed, "Ha ha ha. Everyone, make sure you have a stable footing. I'm going to speed up now." Following which, the green-leaf-winged dragon beast flapped its powerful wings and surged across the sky. Voila! The abrupt increase in speed along with the intense movements of the spirit beast caused Yu Feier and Luo Chichi immediately lose their balance, and they nearly fell from the back of the spirit beast. To a beast tamer, dealing with the passengers riding on his aerial spirit beast was a walk in the park. Realizing what the other party was up to, Yu Feier's face turned scarlet, and she nearly exploded in rage. Just as she was about to bellow angrily, she suddenly felt a surge of zhenqi behind her that stabilized her footing. Turning around, she saw Zhongxian's outstretched hand supporting her back. It seemed like the sudden vigorous movements of the winged dragon beast didn't have much of an effect on this young man. Qin Zhong thought that he could make that wastrel beg for forgiveness through shaking up the ride, but the other party maintained a nonchalant expression, seemingly not afraid at all. Qin Zhong's face immediately darkened once more. If he couldn't even make the other party scared, how could he exact his vengeance? Just as he was about to order the winged dragon beast to perform 2 360-degree turns, he suddenly heard the young man asking calmly, "Brother Qin, there is a question I have been wanting to ask you all along. Do you know how to fly?" Fly. Not expecting the other party to ask such a question, Qin Zhong was taken aback. Flight is an ability that only saints are capable of. How can I possibly be able to fly? Following which, the apologetic voice of the young man was heard once more. I see. I have neglected to tell you this, but I am able to fly. You are. Qin Zhong had no idea where the other party was going with this. However, at this very moment, a thunder-like boom sounded. Moo. Hoo. As soon as the sound reverberated in the air, Qin Zhong immediately felt the winged dragon beast beneath him stiffening, and it began to fall to the ground. Ah! Scared out of his wits, Qin Zhong screamed in fear. The aerial spirit beast beneath him was suddenly paralyzed, and he was incapable of flight. If he were to descend from an altitude of 1,000 meters, he would be immediately brought to death's door. Amidst his screams, he suddenly heard the young man's calm voice speaking by his ear. I don't know what kind of opportunities one have lost, but I do know that being incapable of flight has cost you your opportunity to live. Lifting his gaze, he saw the young man looking at him impassively. The other party was floating in the air with the two ladies from before standing quietly by his side, supported by his junchi. Flight. Never could he have expected for the young man who had only studied a few days in every single occupation to actually be capable of flight. What the heck was this? If he knew that the other party was capable of flight, he wouldn't have gone through all of that. Qin Zhong cried. Chapter 684, Reunion with Hall Master Hanyu. Can fly? Seeing as the man and the beast fell through the sky, creating large mushroom-shaped clouds upon impact, Yu Fei turned to look at the young man beside her with widened eyes as if she had seen a ghost. Wasn't flight an ability exclusive to saints? As a consonant spirit realm cultivator, how was he doing this? Recalling Luo Chichi's fearless demeanor previously, Yu Fei suddenly realized something and asked, Chichi, you knew of this in advance? Back in the underground chamber, Zhong Laoshe used this technique to save me once, Luo Chichi said. With a curious gaze, she turned to Zhong Xian and asked, speaking of which, teacher, why are you able to fly? Actually, she had been wanting to ask this question all along, but there wasn't a suitable opportunity before. If it were to be known that someone beneath sainthood was capable of flight, it would surely leave the blood of many running wild in agitation. But at the same time, it could possibly spell trouble for Zhong Xian. It is an artifact that my teacher gave me. Actually, rather than flight, calling it a temporary tool for gliding would be more exact. Furthermore, it has its flaws as well. For one, it has a high junchi consumption, so I can't sustain it for too long. Since there was no way Zhong Xian could explain this well either, he decided to dump everything onto Yang Xian, as per usual. Artifact. Yang Shi is indeed amazing. Hearing that it was another one of Yang Shi's doing, the duo's eyes immediately lit up in excitement. Considering how many valuable artifacts Yang Shi had given Zhong Xian, it seemed like he truly valued the latter a lot. Seeing that he had managed to get the duo off his hook after bringing his teacher into the picture, Zhong Xian smiled in relief. This artifact is rather rare, so I ask you two not to tell others about it so as to avoid unnecessary trouble. Luo Chichi and Yu Fei nodded in response. Don't worry. It was an unspoken rule for one to not speak of the affairs of a high-ranked master teacher unless a compelling situation warranted it. Besides, they also didn't wish to bring trouble to Zhongshe either. As the trio spoke, they gradually landed on the ground. Zhong Xian exhaled a large mouthful of turbid air. With his current cultivation, he could easily maintain flight for over an hour. However, holding on to two people with his junchi in the midst of his flight was still rather tough on him. It was fortunate that he only had to bring them down and not proceed forward, or else he might just end up plummeting to the ground just like Qin Zhong. Is that fellow dead? Luo Chichi asked. Not too far away from the trio, there was a huge pit with a man and a spirit beast lying inside. The beast was still able to retain its consciousness, but the man, as he was already inflicted with grievous wounds even before the fall, was unable to endure the impact and fainted immediately. No matter what, Qin Zhong is a Cosmos Bridge realm expert. It's just a distance of 1,000 meters, he won't die that easily. Zhong Xian shook his head. Back then, Feng Shui and his team also fell from an altitude of 1,000 meters, but they still survived the fall. Even if this fellow was severely injured by one of the puppets earlier on, considering the defensive artifacts he had in his possession as the young master of the Beast Hall, it was impossible for him to die from this. At worst, he would only be bed-bound for a few months. After explaining the matter to the others, Zhong Xian turned to the green-leaf-winged dragon beast and commanded, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and bring us to the Beast Hall." Even though this huge fellow was wounded as well, it was still conscious. Upon meeting Zhong Xian's gaze, it began to tremble in fear. Roar! Hearing those words, it immediately struggled to its feet and stepped forward. Possessing the dragon bloodline, it possessed an innate fear toward those capable of uttering the dragon language. Naturally, it could only obey Zhong Xian's commands obediently. Hoo hoo hoo! The trio leaped onto the back of the aerial spirit beast, and leaving the unconscious Qin Zhong behind, they advanced toward the Beast Hall. This lesson should serve well to teach that arrogant Qin Zhong to remain humble for the rest of his life. After flying for some time, the group finally arrived at the Beast Hall. The Huanyu Beast Hall was larger and more majestic than the Beast Halls Zhong Xian had seen in the past. Countless spirit beasts filled both the sky and the land, creating an extremely boisterous atmosphere that could be felt even from a distance away. Several hundred meters away from Beast Hall, Zhong Xian and Luo Chichi alighted from the back of the spirit beast. This fellow was the tamed beast of the young master of the Beast Hall. If they were to arrive there on it, it could potentially cause a lot of trouble, and it would be troublesome to explain the matter. As for why they chose to ride the green-leaf-winged dragon beast to the Beast Hall instead of Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy directly, the answer was simple. Hongyuan Empire was more than 1,000,000 kilometers away from Huanyu Empire, and while the green-leaf-winged dragon beast was at the consonant spirit realm, it would take at least 1.5 months for it to cover that distance. It was less than a month until the start of the school term, so Zhong Xian would be late for the entrance examination if he were to ride on its back. On the other hand, there should be higher-ranked spirit beasts in the Huanyu Empire Beast Hall for them to ride on. Thus, they decided to stop by here first. Upon stepping into the lounge of the Beast Hall, the trio was immediately stunned by the huge crowd. The territory of Huanyu Empire stretched across the horizon, and there were countless who visited the Beast Hall every day to travel around on the spirit beasts. There were around a dozen queues, and every queue had several hundred people lining up. Judging from the sight, some of them might have even been lining up since a month or two ago. The number of aerial spirit beasts, savage beasts, and beast tamers in the Beast Hall is limited. As such, it is normal to have to queue for days before getting a ride. Looking at the huge queue before her, Luo Chichi smiled bitterly. Due to the limited number of beast tamers, aerial spirit beasts, and savage beasts, it was impossible to fulfill everyone's demands. As such, the Beast Hall would allocate queue numbers each day, and those whose numbers weren't called would have to wait till the second day, the third day, or even beyond that. In the Hongyuan Beast Hall, there are even a few who fail to get a ride after queuing for 2 months straight. Even though there are fewer people here, I fear that it will still take around 10 days or so before we can get a ride. Yu Feier nodded. The number of experts and esteemed personnel far exceeded the number of spirit beasts and beast tamers available in the Beast Halls. Traveling had always been and was likely to remain a huge problem on the Master-Teacher continent. If only Yi Qian were here. He is well acquainted with the people here, so he may have been able to allow us to bypass the queue, Luo Chichi said bitterly. If he were here, there would be no need for us to come all the way here. The royal family should have some spirit beasts as well, so we could have just asked him to bring some over, replied Yu Feier. While most of the aerial spirit beasts were centered in the Beast Hall, the royal family of most empires and kingdoms would rear a few themselves. Back then, the flying ship that Hong Shi and the others left on was powered by the aerial spirit beasts of the empire. If Yi Qian was here, given his identity as a crown prince, he could easily have brought a few aerial spirit beasts out for them. They wouldn't have had to come all the way here to the Beast Hall just to find a ride. Given the huge number of people here, it would be difficult for them to find a suitable aerial spirit beast. Forget it, borrowing a spirit beast from the Empire is an extremely troublesome procedure, and one will also incur a debt to the Empire. It will be much better to use the spirit beasts from the Beast Hall instead, Luo Chichi said. Logically speaking, given Yu Fei's identity, even if Yi Qian wasn't around, it wouldn't be too difficult for her to borrow a few spirit beasts from Yi Wentian. But her unique identity complicated the matter. As the princess of Hongyuan Empire and a master teacher, if she were to ask for a favor, she would incur a debt which she would have to repay in the future. Since that was the case, it would be better for them to rent a ride from the Beast Hall instead. Not to mention, master teachers possessed a privilege on this aspect, they had a priority queue just for them. On top of that, Luo Chichi and Yu Fei were 5-star master teachers. They were qualified to find the Hall Master or the elders of the Beast Hall straight to request for a better spirit beast and beast tamer. Let's go. Thus, the group proceeded forward. At that moment, Luo Chichi suddenly thought of something, and she turned to the young man beside her and asked, Zhongshe, since you are a beast tamer, do you have any acquaintances here? This is my first time here, so how could I possibly have any acquaintances here? Zhongshen shook his head. It was his first time in Huanyu capital, so how could he know anyone here? That's true. Recalling how Zhongshe had arrived later them, it was indeed unlikely for him to have any acquaintances here. All right then. Nodding, Luo Chichi surveyed the surroundings to find a member of the Beast Hall whom she could ask to show them to an elder or the Hall Master when a delighted voice suddenly called out. Zhongshe, why are you here? Turning around, Zhongshen saw an elder walking to him with an excited smile on his face. Hall Master Han. Upon seeing the elder, Zhongshen was taken aback. The person was none other than the Hall Master whom he met at Coke's Ridge when he tamed the demon-sank beast back then, Han Chong. Why was he here? Thanks to Zhongshe's help, I managed to triumph over Luo Ming in the competition and gained the opportunity to study at Huanyu Empire. Han Chong smiled. He had once suffered a trauma which resulted in a sharp fall in his fighting prowess. Thus, he turned his attention to the demon sank in the hope of taming it to defeat Luo Ming. However, while he was doing so, he met Zhongshen. Not only did Zhongshen save him when Demon Sank Beast went on a rampage, the latter even treated his trauma, allowing him to regain his former strength. Due to that, he gained the opportunity to enter a higher-ranked beast hall to further his knowledge of beast taming. It could be said that Zhongshen was his benefactor. If not for Zhongshe, he would already be dead by now. He'd thought that it would be hard for him to meet this incredible genius again, but who knew that he would actually reunite with him here? Hearing the explanation, Zhongshen immediately understood what was going on. It is through your own capability that you obtained this opportunity. I only did what I should. He recalled how much Han Chong valued this opportunity. For it, he spent 3 entire years trying to tame Demon Sank Beast. Zhongshe is too polite. After trading a few pleasantries, Han Chong asked, is Zhongshe here to take the 5-star Beast Tamer examination or? Actually, we are intending to head to Hongyuan Empire, so we would like to rent a fast spirit beast with good stamina. Zhongshen chuckled. May I ask for Hall Master Han's help with this matter? This isn't a problem at all. I'll show you to the Beast Lodge. Hearing that it was just a small matter, Han Chong hurriedly nodded. Even though he came from the branch in Myriad Kingdom Alliance, as an ex-Hall Master, his standing was still higher than ordinary beast tamers. It wasn't a problem for him to find a spirit beast for Zhongshen. I'll be thanking you then, Hall Master Han. Zhongshen smiled in delight. Han Chong shook his head. There's no need to stand on ceremony. Also, there's no need to call me Hall Master Han. I am only an ordinary 4-star beast tamer here, so you can just address me as Beast Tamer Han. While he was a Hall Master in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance branch, he was nothing more than an ordinary beast tamer here except for his slightly higher standing. It would be inappropriate for him to be addressed as Hall Master here, and it could even be taken as insubordination. All right. Zhongshen nodded. Following behind Han Chong, the group headed for the Beast Lodge. On the other hand, seeing how Zhongshen walked away with a 4-star beast tamer right after claiming that he knew no one in the Beast Hall, Yu Fei and Luo Chichi glanced at one another, and their eyelids twitched frenziedly. You call this knowing no one here? Who are you trying to fool? Why did this Zhongshe feel so upright and dependable at times, and yet so unreliable and eccentric at others? Chapter 685. You know the beast language? The Huanyu Empire Beast Hall's Beast Lodge was established in the midst of the mountain forest. Countless spirit beasts lived leisurely in the area. Even though many of them were natural enemies of one another, they were still able to live harmoniously with one another after being tamed. While walking to their destination, Han Chong asked, Hongyuan Empire is more than 1,000,000 kilometers away from here. How much time do you have for your journey? Zhong Xian calculated for a moment before replying. Of course, the faster the better. It would be best if we can arrive within 20 days. It had been 9 days since Hongshe and the others had departed. If they wanted to catch up, they would have to shorten the month's journey to about 20 days. 20 days. Han Chong suddenly stopped and frowned. If you wish to arrive at Hongyuan Empire within 20 days, you will require a transcendent mortal 7-dan spirit beast at the very least. Long journeys were very different from short journeys. Even if a spirit beast could cover 100,000 kilometers in a day at maximum, the journey could still easily stretch on for a month. After all, it would be impossible for the spirit beast to maintain its full speed throughout the entire journey, and it would also need to rest and recuperate as well. Also, cultivation realm didn't necessarily translate to speed either. Different aerial spirit beasts had different strengths, and there were plenty of powerful spirit beasts who had a slow flight speed. Nevertheless, the minimum requirement for any aerial spirit beast to reach Hongyuan Empire in 20 days was for it to be a transcendent mortal 7-dan spirit beast. Zhong Xian nodded. He was a beast tamer as well, and he had a deep understanding of spirit beasts. He could also roughly gauge the traveling times of different aerial spirit beasts. Only 5-star pinnacle beast tamers are able to tame such a spirit beast. Alright, I'll bring you to the Elder Hall to take a look then. Han Chong frowned. If it was just a transcendent mortal 5-dan spirit beast, Han Chong would surely be able to rent it for Zhong Xian easily. However, as transcendent mortal 7-dan spirit beasts were extremely hard to tame, even for a 5-star beast tamer, their quantity was severely limited. As such, this matter would necessitate the approval of the Elder Hall. The Elder Hall? Will this be too troublesome? Zhong Xian asked. It's fine. My teacher happens to be a 5-star pinnacle beast tamer. If he learns that you are a 4-star beast tamer and a grandmaster physician at such a young age, he will surely be delighted to help you. Han Chong smiled. While they were speaking, they circled around the mountain forest and arrived at a log house. The entire residence was extremely simplistic in design, constructed using only wood and mud. It contrasted starkly to the extravagant infrastructures around the Beast Hall. Pushing open the door of the log house, they saw cages of all sizes placed all around the vast living room. Savages, beast and spirit beasts were housed in those cages, and they varied in terms of size and species. Making a quick estimation, there were around 80 cages in here. These are. Upon seeing all of these cages, Zhong Xian was bewildered. This should be the living quarters of the teacher whom Han Chong spoke of. However, most of the beasts in the cages possessed low cultivation, and there were even a few beneath Zhongshe realm. A 5-star pinnacle beast tamer, a transcendent mortal 8-dan expert, could easily flick a savage beast of that tier to death, so there should be no reason for him to rear them. Oh, my teacher is. Realizing the doubts Zhong Xian was harboring, Han Chong was just about to explain when Jia, a spirited old man, suddenly walked into the room. The old man's hair and beard were both white, and he carried a book in his hands. Seemingly oblivious to the crowd in his log house, he continued walking forward while muttering something under his breath. His face slowly lit up with excitement along with his mutterings, as if he had deciphered a mystery. Teacher. Han Chong stepped forward and addressed him. Don't interrupt me. We'll talk after I'm done. Not even sparing a glance to Han Chong, the old man waved his hands and walked up to a cage. Inside the cage were 8 Shizuan realm scarlet-coated hamsters. These hamsters were small in size, but their ability to burrow was astonishing. There were even some who specially groomed them to have them dig out some space underground to construct an underground chamber. But of course, Considering how the old man had them locked in a cage, that probably wasn't his motive. Seeing his teacher pay little regard to him, Han Chong turned to the trio in embarrassment. Teacher has always been like this. As long as he is in the midst of his research, he will ignore everything in his surroundings. No worries. Zhong Xian smiled. Even though he had to get to Hongyuan Empire as soon as possible, he had this bit of time to spare. On top of that, he was also curious about what the old man was up to. Ignoring the crowd, the old man flipped a few pages on the book, and on a certain page, he suddenly stopped. As though he had finally found what he was looking for, his eyes lit up in agitation. He immediately turned his sight to the scarlet-coated hamsters, took in a deep breath, and shouted, "Boryohu Lomson." Along with the chanting of the old man, the scarlet-coated hamsters widened their eyes and began to puke, as if they had heard something extremely disgusting. They are vomiting. This isn't right. The old man scratched his head as he flipped the pages of the book once more. My pronunciation must be off. I should try again. Boryohu Lomson. Hoo. The eyes of the scarlet-coated hamsters suddenly rolled upward, and their legs began to spasm. Two of them tried to get away, but they ended up knocking against the bars of the cage and fainted. Everyone widened their eyes in shock. Even Zhong Xian was astonished by the sight. What did the old man say to disgust the scarlet-coated hamsters so much that they would rather knock themselves out than to listen to it for a moment longer? Suddenly realizing something, Luo Chichi turned to Han Chong and asked, "Is this beast language?" Even though she wasn't a beast tamer, her occupation as a master teacher required her to have a degree of understanding of all occupations, and she did once read about the ancient beast language before. It was said to have been compiled by Kong Shi himself, but with the passing of time, it gradually disappeared from the world. Even though the heritage was still existent, it was grasped in the hands of a small minority, and it was never passed down to outsiders. Could it be that Han Chong's teacher had already learned the language, and was currently experimenting with it? Just that, why would his words cause such an extreme reaction in the scarlet-coated hamsters to make them vomit like that? My teacher is in the midst of studying the beast language, and there has been some success in his research already. Han Chong nodded. Success? Zhong Xian and the others were speechless. Making a savage beast puke, and you call that success? One punch can easily do the same. Cough cough. Hearing the conversation and seeing the reaction of the crowd, the old man was a little embarrassed. Closing his book and tidying his appearance, he turned around and said, "Han Chong, didn't I instruct you to study yourself? Do you have something for me?" Reporting to teacher, Zhongshe over here is my benefactor, and he wishes to rent a transcendent mortal 8-dan spirit beast to travel to Hongyuan Empire. Han Chong quickly replied. Transcendent mortal 8-dan? The old man frowned. There are only 3 aerial spirit beasts of this caliber in the entire beast hall. 2 of them were rented by the Huanyu royal family, while the last one has just returned from a long journey and is exhausted. I'm afraid that there aren't any available at the moment. Besides, even though I am an elder, I don't have the absolute say in such matters. Dispatching a transcendent mortal 8-dan aerial spirit beast requires the approval of the Elder Conference and the Hall Master. Han Chong's face reddened in embarrassment. The management of the Huanyu Empire Beast Hall was much stricter than the Myriad Kingdom Alliance branch. Transcendent mortal 8-dan spirit beasts were the strongest beings throughout the entire empire, so they wouldn't be given any work unless truly required. Furthermore, the approval of the Elder Conference was required to dispatch them. Back then, when Han Chong was the Hall Master of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance Beast Hall, he could move any spirit beasts with just a single word. He thought that his teacher, as one of the top leaders of the Beast Hall, would possess such authority here, but from the looks of it, the matter wasn't as simple as it seemed. Then, are there any transcendent mortal 7-dan spirit beasts available? Even though transcendent mortal 7-dan aerial spirit beasts were slightly slower, it was still within an acceptable range for Zhong Xian. There is a total of 14 transcendent mortal 7-dan spirit beasts in our guild, but they are all the tamed beasts of elders, and only 5 of them are capable of flight. If you wish to rent one, you will need an elder to drive it personally, so it won't be easy either. The old man shook his head. Furthermore, most of the transcendent mortal 7-dan aerial spirit beasts aren't suited for traveling long distances, so I fear that they won't be much faster than most of the transcendent mortal 6-dan spirit beast. Most of the spirit beasts in the Beast Hall were tamed by the beast tamers collectively or groomed by an apprentice of a low-ranked beast tamer. These spirit beasts were often up for rent to the public. On the other hand, there were also private spirit beasts, which were the tamed beasts that accompanied their tamer's side. Most of them were more suited than battle, so while they could cover short distances swiftly, it was difficult for them to persevere for long distances. On top of that, most of the transcendent mortal 7-dan spirit beasts in the Beast Hall were landbound, and those capable of flight could only do it in short spurts. There were simply too few aerial spirit beasts who were capable of covering long distances such as that between Huanyu Empire and Hongyuan Empire. Is there no other solution? Han Chong asked anxiously. Zhongshe had helped him a lot, and it wasn't easy for him to obtain a chance to repay the debt. He felt embarrassed that he had boasted earlier that it wouldn't be a problem only to let the other party down a few moments later. There is no other way around it. The old man shook his head firmly. At that moment, he suddenly recalled something and said, "Unless you manage to convince that spirit beast to help. If you can do it, you can probably reach Hongyuan Empire in less than 10 days. That spirit beast." Han Chong seemed to understand which spirit beast the old man was referring to, and he shook his head with a bitter smile. But at this moment, he suddenly recalled the various miraculous feats the young man had achieved with the demon-sank beast, and his eyes suddenly lit up. "That's right, teacher, even though we might have been unable to persuade it, perhaps Zhongshe might be able to succeed." Seeing his student getting so agitated, the old man frowned. He glanced at Zhongxian doubtfully and asked, "Him?" He didn't mean to look down on Zhongxian, but the latter seemed to only be in his early 20s. At this age, even if he was talented, he could only be a 2-star beast tamer at best. With such limited capability, what could he possibly achieve? After all, not even the Hall Master had been able to deal with that fellow. Even though Zhongshe is young, he is a true 4-star beast tamer. He was the one who tamed the demon-sank beast, which I failed to do even after 3 years of effort. Han Chong quickly explained. Furthermore, it seems that Zhongshe knows a bit of beast language as well, and it seems to be more effective than teachers. Beast language? You are well versed in the ancient beast language? The old man was taken aback, and the doubt in his eyes deepened. The heritage of the ancient beast language had disappeared many millenniums before, and those who managed to lay their hands on it were all the top beast tamers on the continent. However, all of them viewed what they knew as their greatest treasure and were unwilling to share it with the public, so how could such a young fellow possibly know the ancient beast language? "I studied it for a while." Zhongxian nodded. "Studied it for a while? I have been researching it for more than 50 years, and I barely managed to scratch the surface. What is the use in studying it for a while?" Hearing the other party's words, disappointment flashed across the old man's face. Just as he was about to continue speaking, he suddenly saw the young man before him inhale deeply before opening his mouth. Mu. Huala. All of the spirit beasts and savage beasts in the room immediately crouched on the floor, trembling in fear. On the other hand, the old man also felt his entire body jolt upon hearing that sound. His vision went dark, and he fell onto the floor, convulsing ceaselessly. Chapter 686, 8 Notes of Heavenly Dragons. Even though Zhongxian's dragon language was the most effective on those possessing the dragon bloodline, due to the low cultivation realm of the savage beasts and spirit beasts in the room, it was able to instill fear into them as well. Against the abrupt roar, it was already amazing that some of them were still able to retain their consciousness. Zhongxian could understand why the spirit beasts and savage beasts would react like that to his roar, but, turning to the old man, he asked with a perplexed expression, "Elder, are you fine?" The reason why the spirit beasts and savage beasts lay down was due to their inborn instincts which instilled the fear of dragons into them. Why is a human like you behaving the same way as them? Not to mention, to be convulsing as if you have lost your soul, and that white foam flowing out from your mouth. Did my dragon language somehow disgust you? Teacher. Han Chong was also astonished. He hurriedly rushed forward to grab the other party's Runjong acupoint and infused Zhenqi into his body. Only then did the old man finally regain his consciousness. The language you just spoke. Could it be the true voice of dragons? As soon as the old man came to, he hurriedly stood up and turned to look at Zhongxian in agitation and disbelief. I'm not too sure either. Those are just a few notes that I learned on a whim, Zhongxian replied. In truth, he was not too sure what this language was, and all along, he'd thought that it was a part of the ancient beast language as well. Of the 3 notes he had learned back at the Shenyuan Kingdom Beast Hall, this one was the most useful. Thus, he always utilized this note whenever he needed to deal with spirit beasts. Somehow, it seemed to have a restraining effect on all those that possessed traces of the dragon bloodline. Learned on a whim? A human actually learned the true voice of dragons as well? The old man stared at Zhongxian in disbelief. At that moment, he suddenly exclaimed, "Wait here for a moment," following which, he ran out of the room. A moment later, he returned with an ancient book in his hands, and he flipped it open. Take a look. Lowering his head, Zhongxian realized that the note which he had just vocalized was written in the book as well. Grabbing the book, Zhongxian casually flipped through a few pages and took a look at the cover as well. Noticing some similarities in the content of the ancient book he found in the Library of Heaven's Path back then, he couldn't help but ask, "This is called the True Voice of Dragons?" UN. An ancient beast tamer compiled the knowledge known of the subject and wrote this book. According to it, the language you have just spoken is known as the True Voice of Dragons. True Voice of Dragons? Zhongxian was taken aback. The old man nodded. Legend has it that due to the overwhelming strength of the dragon tribe, they were bound by the natural laws of heaven, preventing them from vocalizing most tones. As such, they were limited to utilizing only 8 tones to express their joy, anger, sorrow, reminiscence, and frustration. Nevertheless, you mustn't underestimate these 8 tones. Even with just 8 tones, the content of the dragon language is still far richer than human speech. Zhongxian nodded. As a beast tamer, he had read innumerable records regarding beasts, and it was theorized that the heavens would take something away from beings that were too strong to maintain equity. Voice was one of them. Nevertheless, even with just 8 tones, the dragon tribe could easily express many different terms through a unique combination of tones. Under the long heritage of the dragons, their language had grown to be far richer than even the humans. The simplest things can sometimes prove to be the most powerful tools. There are simply too many combinations to the dragon language, so without interacting with a real dragon, it's impossible for anyone to fully understand the language. More importantly, at which, the old man's eyes widened in disbelief and he uttered, "The 8 tones of heavenly dragons require one to possess a pure-blooded dragon bloodline to vocalize. The body of a human can't possibly endure the pressure of such notes. So, how did you do it? Do you possess the pure-blooded dragon body?" Pure-blooded dragon body? Zhongxian questioned in bewilderment. Yes. The pure-blooded dragon body is a unique constitution that is even more powerful than the pure yang body and pure yin body. Once the constitution is awakened, the dragon bloodline in one's body will become incomparably close to a pure-blooded dragon, and one's cultivation and fighting prowess will be boosted significantly, and the concept of cultivation bottlenecks will become non-existent. The more the old man spoke, the more his face flushed in agitation. Pure-blooded dragon body, this was one of the strongest unique constitution in the world. Given that the man before him was able to vocalize the dragon language that all humans should be incapable of, could he really possess such a constitution? If that was true, then it would truly be fearsome. Teacher, do you really possess the pure-blooded dragon body? Hearing the words of the old man, Luo Chichi and Yu Fei glanced at one another momentarily before turning their curious gazes to Zhongxian. Based on Zhongshi's legendary record, his cultivation did improve at a monstrous pace. All along, they had attributed it to Yangshe, but could the pure-blooded dragon body have played an important part as well? If that was the case, many things that had bewildered them previously could be explained. Zhongxian scratched his head. How could he possibly possess the pure-blooded dragon body? The only reason he was able to vocalize the dragon language was due to the Heaven's Path Zhenqi and Heaven's Path golden body. But of course, he couldn't explain any of this either, so he could only change the subject. Does this book record all 8 of the tones? Record all 8 tones? Of course not. Seeing that the other party was unwilling to divulge much, the old man also chose to put the matter aside. Shaking his head, he continued, "The 8 tones of heavenly dragons is the language of the dragon tribe. Humans aren't qualified to learn and utilize it. In truth, this book only records the deductions on how those sounds came to be. The meaning of those words and the method to vocalizing them are unclear in it." "I see." Zhongxian casually flipped through the book while he immersed his consciousness into the Library of Heaven's Path. He could read much faster in the Library of Heaven's Path, and its innate function also allowed him to discern the truth from the false. Soon, Zhongxian swept through the entire book and came to a realization. Just as the other party had said, the book mainly recorded the origin of the 8 tones of heavenly dragons and its relationship to the dragon tribe. As for the rest, it was extremely unclear. Of the 8 tones, the mu which he often used was also recorded in it. However, even though there were more than 30 pages depicting its vocalization, none of them were correct. As for the other 2 tones that he had learned previously, they weren't among the 8 tones, so they were probably not a part of the dragon language. This explained why those 2 notes were ineffective against the spirit beasts when he tried them out. It was also stated in the book that due to physiological differences, even if humans were to learn the proper way of vocalizing the sound, they would still be unable to imitate the dragons. As such, the 30-page depiction of its vocalization were just deductions on the author's part, and there was no evidence to back up his findings. One of the tones seems to be correct. Just as Zhongxian was about to finish reading the book, his eyes suddenly lit up. Nearing the end, there was actually a correct depiction of one of the 8 tones. The second tone of the 8 tones of heavenly dragons, Mao. Memorizing the way to vocalize it, Zhongxian made a mental note to try it when he got the chance. At this moment, he suddenly recalled the peculiarity that happened just a while ago, and his eyes fell upon the old man before him. It's written in the book that the 8 tones of heavenly dragons only has the effect of restraining life forms possessing the dragon bloodline, and this is known as the majesty of the pure-blooded dragon. But if that is the case, why did you fall to the ground previously as well? Zhongxian wasn't the only one curious about this matter. Luo Chichi, Han Chong, and Yu Fei also turned their gazes over as well. Even though Zhongshi's voice was loud, that was all it was to them. They weren't influenced by the 8 tones of heavenly dragons, and they didn't feel any pressure from it either. So why would a transcendent mortal 8-dan pinnacle elder fall to the ground? Not to mention, the latter even convulsed ceaselessly and leak white foam. The old man didn't seem to be surprised by the question at all. After a long moment of silence, he finally sighed and said, "Follow me." After which, he walked to the backyard of the log house. "Teacher." Seeing his teacher beckoning them to the backyard, Han Chong was bewildered. It had been some time since he had come under his teacher's tutelage, but the latter had strictly warned him never to go to the backyard. There was one time that he sneaked in out of curiosity, but before he could get a good look, he was caught. He ended up being reprimanded and was given a stern warning against it. However, all of that only heightened his curiosity. Nevertheless, for fear of angering his teacher, he didn't dare to sneak in anymore. He didn't expect his teacher to actually bring them in of his own accord. Not knowing the history behind the backyard, Zhongxian and the others followed the old man casually around the log house and to the backyard. There was a small mound in the backyard, and a tombstone was erected in front of the mound. Glancing at the tombstone, 6 words were written on it: "The grave of draconic granite beast. The transcendent mortal 8-dan spirit beast that rules over all landbound lifeforms." Draconic granite beast. Zhongxian frowned. "That's right." The old man nodded. Gazing at the tombstone with complex emotions, he said, "He is my tamed beast." "Teacher's tamed beast?" Han Chong was stunned. His eyes slowly widened as he asked, "Teacher's tamed beast is dead?" In truth, in the days he had been in the Huanyu Empire Beast Hall, he had never seen his teacher's tamed beast before. He thought that it might have been dispatched on a mission or something, but never had he imagined that it would actually be dead. Beast tamers could have more than one tamed beast, but they would have to do a lot to win their trust. Most beast tamers would choose to view their tamed beast as their closest friend or even their kin. As such, the death of a tamed beast could be a heavy blow to a beast tamer. There were quite a few who never recovered from the emotional trauma. Was the death of his tamed beast the reason why his teacher chose to live in such a remote location? My tamed beast is dead. Because of me. The old man shook his head. Because of you. I tamed this draconic granite beast when I was in the midst of my 5-star beast tamer examination. The old man sighed as he recounted the story. After taming the draconic granite beast and successfully advancing to become a 5-star beast tamer, he grew complacent and fearless. Eventually, when he was fighting against an enemy one day, he sustained a fatal injury. Back then, his severe injuries were threatening to claim his life at any moment. It was the draconic granite beast who infused its blood essence into him to save him. Not too long later, it died. He had always felt guilty about this matter, so he buried the other party here, erected a tombstone, and swore to accompany the other party until his death. Due to the presence of the blood essence of the draconic granite beast in me, I am also subjected to the pressure from the voice of true dragons, the elder said. Zhong Xian nodded. It was no wonder. Even though the draconic granite beast had a huge stature, its blood essence was limited. Furthermore, in order to save him, the blood essence had to be of a certain purity. As such, even though the old man didn't exactly possess the dragon bloodline, it was still affected by it. Is this related to the reason why you studied the ancient beast language and the 8 notes of heavenly dragons? Zhong Xian asked. Considering how the other party had put everything aside to immerse himself in the research of the ancient beast language, it was likely related to the experiences he had. Yes. Back then, when I was severely injured, it was draconic granite beast who saved me. However, there was another spirit beast present there then. It was the spirit beast which I said that could reach Hongyuan Empire within just 10 days, Great Violet Wing Beast. The old man clenched his fists tightly together. Before the draconic granite beast passed away, it said many words to me. However, as it was extremely weak then, it was unable to communicate telepathically to me, so I was unable to understand what it had said. All these years, I have been trying my best to study the ancient beast language so as to learn what it said with its dying breath, and what kind of regrets it had that it wanted me to fulfill. At this point, the old man's eyes turned red. Chapter 687. I am done studying it. A typical beast tamer would have to spend several years of selfless giving and intimate conversations to win the trust and loyalty of a savage beast. Not everyone was like Zhong Xian, where a single beating would suffice. As such, the relationships between beast tamers and their tamed beasts tended to be extremely strong. Furthermore, this tie was further strengthened when they engaged in collaborative cultivation and fused their bloodlines together. This draconic granite beast had spent many years accompanying this elder, and in the latter's heart, it had already become his closest kin. On top of that, it had even given up its life for him. Thus, no matter how much trouble it would take, he wanted to fulfill the latter's dying will. Has the Beast Hall tried taming the Great Violet Wing Beast yet? Zhong Xian frowned. Even if a beast tamer couldn't comprehend the ancient beast language, they were still able to communicate with one another telepathically. The only reason the elder wasn't able to interpret the draconic granite beast's last words and ended up immersing himself in the research of the ancient beast language was because the latter was too weak to communicate telepathically then. However, considering how the Great Violent Wing Beast was present at that moment, it should have heard the words of the draconic granite beast. If someone tamed it, they would be able to learn of the draconic granite beast's dying message, and the elder wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. The elder shook his head. Even though a mature Great Violet Wing Beast tends to be at Transcendent Mortal 8 Dan, this one has reached the level of half 9 Dan. There's no one in the Beast Hall who is sufficiently capable to tame it. Half 9 Dan? Yes. Even though it hasn't exactly reached 9 Dan yet, the advantages it derives from its superior physique and bloodline allows it to defeat most 9 Dan cultivators. Furthermore, the death of the draconic granite beast has made it hostile to humans, thus making it impossible to tame it. The elder said. The great violet-wing beast was a good friend of the draconic granite beast. Zhongxian was perplexed. The elder hesitated for a moment before replying. They were lovers. Lovers. Zhongxian was stunned. There were plenty of powerful spirit beast species that were extremely limited in terms of their numbers. As such, it would be difficult for them to find a companion from the same species. Under such circumstances, they would choose to find another powerful spirit beast to mate with. But of course, it was uncertain whether they would be able to procreate together or not. More often than not, they would regard the latter as their spiritual partner, a companion to fight and spend their days with. In fact, there were some human couples who had such platonic relationships as well. Upon reaching a certain level of cultivation, cultivators would begin to crave for spiritual intimacy rather than physical relationships. Procreation and physical pleasure would take the backseat instead. Since the great violet-wing beast and draconic granite beast were a couple, it was natural that they shared an intimate relationship. As such, it viewed the elder, who took the draconic granite beast away from it, in hostility. As such, how could it possibly be willing to inform the latter of the draconic granite beast's dying will? Thus, the elder was determined to study the ancient beast language so as to communicate and make peace with it. Upon hearing his teacher's words, Han Chong couldn't help but ask, "But teacher, since the great violet-wing beast was the companion of teacher's tamed beast, why does it still wreak havoc in the beast hall once every few days?" Wreak havoc? Luo Chichi turned her gaze over curiously. Indeed. That fellow comes over several times a month to attack the beast hall and devour a few spirit beasts, resulting in immense fury among the beast tamers. The beast hall has gone to great lengths to capture it, but it was simply too strong and too fast, thus resulting in a failure each time. Han Chong explained. Even though he hadn't been in Huanyu Empire for too long, he was still able to learn of quite a few things. In the past month, the great violet-wing beast had already attacked the beast hall several times and devoured several spirit beasts. This had left many people furious, but due to the great violet-wing beast's overwhelming strength, there was nothing that they could do. All along, he had thought that the great violet-wing beast was just provoked by the spirit beasts becoming subservient to humans. There were plenty of spirit beasts who felt that humans weren't qualified to tame them, but from the looks of it now, it seemed like it was exacting vengeance for its companion. It is intentionally wreaking havoc in the beast hall because it is furious at the draconic granite beast's death. The other reason I have been studying the ancient beast language over the past few decades is to ask it exactly it want. The elder shook his head in disappointment. After which, it turned its eyes to Zhongxian and asked, "Since you are able to vocalize even the true voice of dragons, are you by any chance knowledgeable in the ancient beast language as well?" Even if he possessed the pure-blooded dragon body, there was no way he could learn the true voice of dragons by himself. Thus, someone must have tutored him. Given that the certain someone was able to impart even the true voice of dragons, there was a chance that the person might just have imparted the ancient beast language along with it. While the other party said that he had only learned it for a while, he could just be saying so out of humility. Scratching his head, Zhongxian said, "I am not too knowledgeable about the ancient beast language." He did learn a few words back then, but it had only managed to enrage the spirit beasts he had attempted to speak with. Given how he didn't even know the meaning of those words, it was no different from not knowing the language at all. Not too knowledgeable. Hearing those words, the elder's expectant eyes sank. Then, what about the 8 notes of heavenly dragons? Even though the great violet-wing beast didn't possess the dragon bloodline, if the other party could talk to it via the dragon language, he might just be able to convince it to reveal the truth regarding the matter back then. While verbal communication would be impossible, there were still various other ways for a human to communicate with a spirit beast. "I only know a single note." Zhongxian felt even more embarrassed. The other party thought that he was well versed in the dragon language, but in truth, Zhongxian only knew a single note. He could still scare a few spirit beasts possessing dragon bloodline with it, but communicating with just that single note was clearly impossible. A single note. The elder staggered speechlessly. When the young man used the dragon language, he thought that he had found a solution to this problem. But in the end, nothing had changed at all. "Forget it then." The elder shook his head helplessly. He had gathered many books on the ancient beast language in the past few hopes in the hope that he could piece it together slowly. However, this language was simply far too difficult. Without anyone to guide him along, he couldn't even differentiate the true words from the false, so he wasn't able to make much progress in his research. Considering how highly Han Chong thought of the young man, he thought that he could learn a thing or two from the latter. Who knew that the latter would be as ignorant as him? Zhong Xian gazed at the elder and asked, "It's still too early to give up. Given that you have been studying the ancient beast language for decades, you must have gathered quite a number of books. May I borrow them to read? Perhaps I might be able to make a breakthrough in your research." Borrow? Breakthrough? The elder smiled bitterly. You mean that you want to start studying now? Zhong Xian nodded. Do you know how difficult the ancient beast language is? Seeing that the other party had such an intention, the elder couldn't help but shake his head. The ancient beast language has lost most of its heritage, and the records that remain are all unclear and mixed with falsehood. Putting aside whether the vocalization method for the words in them are true or not, even if they are the meanings listed in the book even accurate? I have already spent 50 years studying the topic, but I haven't been able to make any advancement at all, so. The elder didn't finish his words, but his meaning couldn't have been clearer. He thought that Zhong Xian was treating the entire matter too lightly. He had spent his entire life studying the topic, only to find himself as ignorant as he was at the very start. If the ancient beast language could be grasped that easily, it wouldn't have lost most of its heritage in the first place, and innumerable beast tamers wouldn't have failed in their attempts to restore it either. I am just very interested in the ancient beast language, so I wish to take a look at those books. If I can comprehend something from them, that would of course be for the best. But if I can't, there's no harm in it either, said Zhong Xian, knowing the thoughts going through the other party's mind. All right then. All of the books I have on the ancient beast language are in my log house. Over the years, I have collected everything related to the ancient beast language that has appeared in Huanyu Empire. The elder waved his hands in disinterest. Even though it did take him a lot of trouble to gather his collection of books, it wasn't of particular importance to him. It mattered not to him whether the other party read them or not. You have my gratitude. Zhong Xian clasped his fist before walking out. As his figure disappeared into the log house, the elder couldn't help but shake his head in disappointment. Even with someone imparting the ancient beast language, it's impossible to learn it without several years of practice. If it could be learned that easily, wouldn't I have wasted the past 50 years of my life for nothing? He thought that the other party should possess incredible composure given that he was able to utter the true voice of dragons. In the end, the other party was still so impetuous. The ancient beast language was tied to a huge secret of the beast hall. If it could be learned that easily, beast tamers like them wouldn't face so much difficulty trying to tame beasts. Hearing the doubt in the elder's voice, Luo Chichi couldn't help but speak up for Zhong Xian. Teacher has always been a reliable person. Since his going to read the books, he must have an idea in mind. Perhaps he really might just succeed. Hearing the young lady's address for the young man, the elder was stunned. He immediately turned his gaze over to her. Teacher, you are his student. The young lady's cultivation and disposition were both exceptional among her peers. Why would she acknowledge a person who was even younger than her as her teacher? That's right. Luo Chichi nodded. If I recall correctly, you addressed him as Zhong Shi previously. Could the young man be a master teacher? Hearing Luo Chichi's reply, the elder suddenly recalled how Han Chong addressed the young man as well. Han Chong pondered for a moment before replying. Zhong Shi is a 4-star master teacher, as well as the champion of the master teacher tournament. The reason he's heading for Hongyuan Empire is probably to study at the Master Teacher Academy. Han Chong had left the Myriad Kingdom Alliance even before the Master Teacher Tournament had begun, so there were many things that he was oblivious of. Nevertheless, he did hear some news regarding the matter. The champion of the Master Teacher Tournament. The elder was taken aback. Not only so, Zhong Shi is also a 4-star beast tamer and 4-star physician. Han Chong quickly mentioned. 4-star beast tamer? The elder frowned. Since he's a 4-star beast tamer, he should understand how difficult it is to learn the ancient beast language. It is unlikely for him to act so impulsively on the matter. If the young man was only a master teacher and was ignorant of beast taming, the elder could still understand the other party's actions. But a 4-star beast tamer should have already accrued considerable knowledge of the field, so how could he possibly not understand the difficulty involved in learning the ancient beast language? On the other hand, if he knew, how could he possibly utter such amateurish words? Shaking his head, the elder decided to put this matter behind him for now. Inform me when he's done reading the books. I'll take you to meet the hall master. Meet the hall master? Is teacher going to help them find an aerial spirit beast? Han Chong's eyes lit up. Since he's a 4-star master teacher and a beast tamer, there's no reason for us not to help him. I recall that the hall master has a transcendent mortal 7-dan spirit beast. Even though he never lends it anyone, he might be willing to compromise if I request it of him personally, the elder said. Thank you, teacher. Hearing that his teacher was willing to help, Han Chong hurriedly bowed in gratitude. At that moment, the door opened, and the young man walked out. Everyone was taken aback. Even the elder couldn't help but frown at the sight before him. I thought you were going in to read the books in order to learn the ancient beast language. Why are you out when it has barely been 10 minutes? The elder couldn't help but ask, is the ancient beast language too hard to comprehend so you lost your interest? There was no doubt about it, this fellow must have faltered at the sight of the immense collection before him. Otherwise, how could he possibly finish in such a short period of time? It's indeed very difficult, but the reason I am out is not because I have lost my interest. It's because... At this point, Zhongxian looked a little hesitant, but eventually, he still spoke decisively. I am done studying it. Chapter 688, Hallmaster Qin, you're done studying? Everyone was dumbfounded. This was especially so for the elder. His face turned livid in rage. He had gone to great lengths to collect the books inside the log house, and he knew how huge his collection was. Over the past 50 years, through tapping into the connections of the guild, he had gathered as many ancient texts and scrolls regarding the ancient beast language as he could, and they numbered at least in the 100,000. Even he had to spend an entire 10 years to go through the whole collection. Yet, in just 10 minutes, the other party actually claimed that he was done. Even if you want to lie, you should come up with something better than that. What do you mean by you are done? The elder couldn't hold himself back anymore and harumphed. Oh, it means that I have roughly grasped the language, and basic communication shouldn't be a problem, Zhongxian said. He had immediately started sprinting around to collect the books as soon as he'd entered the room. In just a few minutes, the massive collection of 100,000 works was duplicated in the Library of Heaven's Path. Then, through the Library of Heaven's Path, he'd sieved out the truth from the falsehood. Astonishingly, he'd managed to find quite a few correct words. Even though many of these records were just speculation, and some of them were even utter rubbish that the authors had made up, there were simply too many of them in terms of numbers. As the saying goes, pile up a bed of sand and you will build a castle. By compiling all of them together, Zhongxian was still able to derive quite a few correct words. The book which he had compiled contained the common phrases of the ancient beast language, as well as their vocalization methods. While it would still be difficult to hold a proper conversation, basic communication shouldn't be a problem. Basic communication shouldn't be a problem? Hearing the other party's words, the elder's face darkened. What arrogance! Even after 50 years of diligence, he hadn't even managed to grasp the tale of the language. Just take the experiment he did just a moment for example, his words had caused the scarlet-coated hamsters to puke in disgust. And yet, the young man before him actually claimed that he had mastered the basics of the language just moments after beginning to study. If that is the case, I must be worse than a pig for achieving nothing at all after so many years of research. Even if you wish to lie, at least say something more credible than this. Knowing that he would be doubted if he spoke the truth, Zhongxian was just about to find another logical explanation for this matter when a young man suddenly barged into the room. Elder, something bad has happened. The great violet wing beast is back again. It's back again. The elder's face darkened. Take me there. Yes. The young man hurriedly rushed in the direction where the destruction was ongoing, and the elder followed him closely. Let's go take a look as well. Seeing the elder leave hurriedly, Zhongxian glanced at Luo Chichi and the others and followed behind. Their primary intention here was to find an aerial spirit beast. Given that the great violet-wing beast was at half 9 dan, if Zhongxian were to tame it, it would save them a lot of trouble. Okay. Knowing the severity of the matter, Han Chong nodded and followed the group. Along the way, Zhongxian learned from Han Chong that the latter's teacher went by the surname of Qian, and he was one of the more qualified and respected elders in the Beast Hall. As the harassment of the great violet-wing beast was linked to Elder Qian, he would rush over to deal with the matter each time. While it hadn't been long since Han Chong arrived at the Beast Hall, he had already encountered this situation numerous times already. As such, he had a deep impression of that huge fellow. Every time that fellow arrives, it will either cause devastating destruction or kill the other spirit beasts, causing many complaints from the customers. Speaking of the great violet-wing beast, even Han Chong couldn't help but feel a little frustrated. It was one thing for it to hurt the beast tamers in anger, but the main problem was that it also bared its fangs against the spirit beasts as well. There were a few customers who, after queuing for numerous days, finally got to the end of the line, but due to the spirit beasts getting injured, their ride was delayed significantly. This had caused the credibility of the Beast Hall to plummet. The Beast Hall did attempt to set several traps for the great violet-wing beast, but the latter seemed to always know of them in advance. Furthermore, its overwhelming strength also allowed it to break out of any encirclement easily and exact its wrathful vengeance once it returned. The Beast Hall even reported this matter to the headquarters, and the Hongyuan Empire Beast Hall specially sent a 6-star beast tamer over to deal with it. However, seemingly having realized the lurking danger, it kept clear of the Beast Hall for several months straight. And as soon as the 6-star beast tamer left, it immediately rushed back to wreak havoc once more. After so many tries, the personnel of the Beast Hall found themselves incapable of dealing with it at all. Helpless, they could only invite Elder Qian over each time to deal with it. However, there was indeed something very bizarre about the matter. Every time Elder Qian arrived on the scene, no matter how ferocious the great violet-wing beast had been a moment before, it would immediately turn away and leave, unwilling to harm him at all. All along, Han Chong had been perplexed about this matter. He thought that it was due to his teacher's formidable beast-taming capability that made the great violet-wing beast hesitant to face the latter. But from the looks of it now, it was probably related to the draconic granite beast. Chances were that the great violet-wing beast had made a promise to the draconic granite beast. Thus, no matter how displeased the great violet-wing beast was with Elder Qian, it was unwilling to do anything that would hurt him. It's right in front. At that moment, Han Chong's eyebrow suddenly shot up, and he abruptly rushed forward. Zhongxian and the others also swiftly followed suit. Soon, a massive, violet spirit beast appeared before their eyes. With a transcendent mortal 3-dan spirit beast in its talons, it circled the sky majestically. On the other hand, Elder Qian was standing beneath it with an anxious look. Not too far away from Elder Qian stood 8 white-bearded elders. Of them, the one standing in the middle bore striking resemblance with Qin Zhong. Most likely, he was the famed Hall Master Qin. To think that fellow would be back so soon. Behind those white-bearded elders, Zhongxian saw a familiar face. It was that fellow incapable of flight, Qin Zhong. Zhongxian thought that he would take some time to return to the Beast Hall considering how his spirit beast had left him. It seems the green-leaf-winged dragon beast returned to fetch him. Luo Chichi whispered to Zhongxian. Zhongxian nodded. They had let the green-leaf-winged dragon beast go right after they had arrived at the Beast Hall. Knowing that its master was still lying unconscious in a ditch, it immediately rushed off to save him as soon as it was released. The Beast Hall wasn't too far away from where they fell earlier, so it didn't take too long for it to return with Qin Zhong. At this moment, Qin Zhong's body was completely wrapped up like a mummy. Even though he was severely injured, he wasn't in a critical condition. His eyes were fixated on the great violet-wing beast above, unaware that his nemesis was nearby. Gazing at the great violet-wing beast above, Elder Chen clenched his fists tightly and said, "Let the spirit beast go. I hope you won't involve the beast hall in our grudge. Otherwise, our draconic granite beast would surely be unable to rest in peace if he were to see this sight." Roar. Upon hearing Elder Chen mention the draconic granite beast, the fellow above gritted its teeth in anger. Not only did it not release the spirit beast, it even tightened its grip. Under the humongous pressure, the spirit beast in its claws seemed to be on the verge of being crushed to death. "Elder Chen and Hall Master Qin, please save my spirit beast." Looking at the sight in the sky, a 4-star beast tamer pleaded anxiously. Clearly, the spirit beast held hostage in the great violet wing beast's claws was his tamed beast. It had taken him a lot of effort to tame the spirit beast, and throughout the long taming process, he had also come to bear feelings for the latter. "Beast Tamer Li, don't worry. I'll surely save your tamed beast," Elder Chen assured. He understood very well the pain of having one's tamed beast killed. He didn't want anyone to go through the same pain he did. After consoling Beast Tamer Li, Elder Chen turned to the sky and bellowed, "Great Violet Wing Beast. As long as you free it, I'll give you anything as long as it is within my means, be it blood essence or spirit stones." Hearing those words, Hall Master Qin frowned. "Elder Chen, you mustn't promise it that. Throughout the years, you have already given away nearly your entire wealth. Your cultivation will really stagnate if you continue giving in to the great violet wing beast like that." Considering Elder Chen's talent, he should have already long reached transcendent mortal 9 Dan. However, as he gave away nearly the entirety of his savings to the great violet wing beast, he was deprived of his cultivation resources, resulting in a significant reduction in his cultivation speed. On the contrary, through frequent blackmailing, the great violet wing beast had managed to use those resources to reach half 9 Dan first. If this were to continue on, the great violet wing beast would only grow stronger and stronger, thus making it a greater threat to the beast hall. "This is what I owe to draconic granite beast." Elder Chen shook his head. "But..." Hall Master Qin's face turned livid. "There are no buts. If not for the draconic granite beast, I would have long been dead. It is already a huge mercy from the heavens that I've been able to live for so long. Putting aside my savings, if my death can bring great violet wing beast solace, I'm willing to give my life up." With a resolute gaze, Elder Chen flicked his wrist and whipped out an entire bunch of beast essence, middle-tier spirit stones, and a few precious medicinal herbs. However, the amount wasn't large. It seemed like Elder Chen's wealth had really been swiped clean over the years. Just as Elder Chen was about to throw his remaining wealth over to the huge fellow in the sky, a nonchalant voice suddenly echoed through the surroundings. "You owe a debt to your draconic granite beast, not to great violet wing beast. Elder Chen, you really don't have to do so." Upon hearing the voice, everyone immediately turned their attention to the source, and they saw a young man walking over toward him. "Father, he's the one who left me in such a tragic state. You mustn't let him off easily." Not expecting the fellow to actually stride up to them without fear, Qin Zhong's eyes immediately reddened in wrath. "Him?" Hall Master Qin's face darkened. Turning to Elder Chen, he asked, "Elder Chen, do you recognize this young man?" His Han Chong's benefactor, a 4-star master teacher and beast tamer. Following which, he turned to the young man with a frown and waved his hands. "This is none of your business, don't get involved in it. If you wish to borrow a spirit beast from the beast hall, I'll have to ask you to step aside." Of course, the young man who was walking over was none other than Zhong Xian. Unable to tolerate how Elder Chen kept giving in to the great violet wing beast, he decided to step forward and intervene. However, the other party didn't seem to welcome his interference at all. Just as Zhong Xian was about to reply to the other party's words, a young lady behind him abruptly spoke up. "What if we refuse?" "Refuse? Then don't even dream about renting a spirit beast from the beast hall." Elder Chen flung his sleeves angrily and harumphed. However, at that moment, he suddenly noticed Hall Master Qin's face turning pale, and his lips were quivering uncontrollably as well. At the same time, the latter also kept shooting him some looks, seemingly trying to hint something to him. "Cough cough, Elder Chen. Calm down, that's not how we should treat our guests." "What's wrong?" Seeing the bizarre attitude from the hall master, Elder Chen was perplexed. However, before he received a response, the young lady standing behind Zhongshe suddenly stepped forward. She glanced at Hall Master Qin and smiled with a face devoid of any warmth. If my memory doesn't fail me, you're Qin Zhao, right? You're the Hall Master here? With a pale face, Hall Master Qin hurriedly clasped his fist. Qin Zhao pays respect to Princess Feiya. So, you recognize me? With her hands behind her back, Yu Feiya exuded a powerful, authoritative aura befitting that of a princess from a Tier 1 empire. I once accompanied my teacher to the royal palace, and I had the pleasure of meeting your highness. Qin Zhao quickly bowed deeply. However, before he could finish his words, his severely wounded son suddenly howled furiously. Father, that woman is an accomplice as well. Together with that fellow over there, those scum manipulated my spirit beast and made it plummet from the sky. You must redress my grievances. With his vision blocked by the crowd, Qin Zhong didn't notice his father's peculiar attitude. Thinking that his father was going to get even for him, his eyes reddened with excitement. On the other hand, upon hearing those words, Hall Master Qin staggered weakly, and he nearly fainted on the spot. Don't you call me. I'll let you be my father, but please don't call me father. Other people's sons practice filial piety, but why does mine seem so intent on dragging me down to the depths of hell? Chapter 689, Still Alive. Princess. Seeing the hall master's face twisting in frustration, Elder Chen couldn't help but assess the young lady before him. Yi Wentian did have a few daughters, but none of their appearances or ages seemed to coincide with this young lady here. Besides, so what if the other party was a princess? As the esteemed hall master of the Beast Hall, a transcendent mortal 8-dan pinnacle expert, not even Yi Wentian would dare to do anything to him. Was there really a need for him to be so fearful of a mere princess? She's not Yi Wentian's daughter, she's the 6th princess of Hongyuan Empire, Princess Yu Feiya. Noticing Elder Chen's confusion, Hall Master Qin immediately sent a telepathic message over for fear that he might say something rude. Hongyuan Empire? Hearing those words, Elder Chen's body suddenly trembled intensely, and he nearly fainted on the spot. The reticent lady who followed behind Zhongshe like a maid was actually the princess of Hongyuan Empire. Hongyuan Empire was a Tier 1 empire, and it had many experts in its ranks. Furthermore, the Great Master Teacher Academy was located there as well. As a result, the royal family which ruled over the region wielded great prestige and authority. Not even Yi Wentian would dare to utter a word of complaint when berated by a princess from such an empire. Are you sure you are not mistaken? If this young lady over here is really a princess, then considering how she was following behind Zhongshe subserviently, what in the world is Zhongshe's background? Seeing Yu Feiya bringing out her identity as a princess, Luo Chichi stepped forward and asked, Feiya, you know him? On my birthday a few years ago, Elder Bai from the Beast School gave me a white-tailed green wolf, and this Hall Master Qin happened to be behind him then, Yu Feiya replied nonchalantly. Oh. Luo Chichi nodded. Now that you mention it, I seem to recall it as well. I thought that the person then was just an ordinary disciple under Elder Bai. To think that he would be the Hall Master of the Huanyu Empire Beast Hall. As a close friend of Yu Feiya, there was no way Luo Chichi would miss Yu Feiya's birthday. She could still remember how envious she was when she saw Elder Bai gifting Yu Feiya a white-tailed green wolf as a present back then. Taking a closer look now, she also realized that Hall Master Qin looked extremely familiar. You are Luosha? Recognizing the close friend of Yu Feiya, Hall Master Qin's lips twitched. Yes, you are indeed sharp. I am 5-star Master Teacher Luo Chichi. Luo Chichi nodded. 5-star Master Teacher? Elder Chen's body shook. If you are a 5-star Master Teacher, you should have said so earlier. If I knew earlier, I wouldn't have put on such airs and immediately rushed off to find the best spirit beast in the Beast Hall for you. Thus, Elder Chen turned to stare at Han Chong in anger. Didn't you say that Zhongshe is a 4-star Master Teacher from the Myriad Kingdom Alliance? If that is really true, how can a 5-star Master Teacher possibly be his student? Han Chong also stared at Zhongshen indignantly. Didn't you just pass your 4-star master teacher examination a few months ago? When in the world did you turn the princess of the Hongyuan Empire royal family and a 5-star master teacher into your follower and your student? They weren't the only ones who were feeling frenzied by the turn of events. At this moment, Qin Zhong also realized what was wrong, and he nearly burst into tears. He actually teased the princess from Hongyuan Empire and a 5-star master teacher. In fact, he even tried to get his father to teach the other party a lesson. It was fortunate that the other party didn't follow up on the matter. Otherwise, not even his father would be able to save him if the other party were to behead him on the spot out of anger. Seeing how they were getting sidetracked, Zhongxian shook his head and said, "All right, now is not the time to be talking about such unimportant matters. We should deal with the great violet wing beast first." The transcendent mortal 3-dan spirit beast was already on the verge of being crushed to death, and yet they were still chatting at this moment. Deal? How do we deal with it? Does Zhongsha have any idea in mind? Judging by how Princess Yufei and Luo Chichi seemed to hold the young man as the de facto leader of their group, Hall Master Qin could tell that the young man was not as simple as he seemed. After a moment of contemplation, Zhongxian replied with a frown, "I'll negotiate with it to see what it wants. If the other party possessed the dragon bloodline, he could easily stop it with a Mu or the new Learned Mao. However, that didn't seem to be the case, and it was likely that he was just going to waste his efforts. Since that was the case, he might as well ask the other party what its goal was. Negotiate. Hall Master Qin and Elder Chen frowned. It was precisely due to the communication barrier before them that made it difficult to negotiate with the vengeful great violet wing beast. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so helpless before it either. Just as they were wondering what the young man was up to, the young man stepped forward and spoke. $*% at #3. The great violet wing beast in the sky was visibly stunned for a moment, but a moment later, it began roaring. Roar. The young man, #%, the great violet wing beast, roar. This is the ancient beast language. Seeing the man and the beast conversing with one another, Hall Master Qin's eyes nearly popped out from their sockets. Any beast tamer, regardless of their capability, would be able to qualify as a 6-star beast tamer at the very least just by knowing how to speak the ancient beast language once their cultivation reached the required level. Thus, it was unimaginable for him that this young man was actually able to speak the ancient beast language. Elder Chen, aren't you trying to learn the ancient beast language? You can study under Zhongsha. The excited Hall Master Qin turned to look at Elder Chen, only to freeze in astonishment at the very next moment. The composed Elder Chen was currently clawing at his hair frenziedly, as though he was going insane. But it was no wonder he was reacting like that. It was just a moment ago that the young man was completely ignorant of the ancient beast language. Yet, 10 minutes after entering his log house to browse through his collection of records, Zhongsha returned and claimed that he had learned the basics of the language. All this while, Elder Chen thought that the latter was just boasting, but to think that it was actually true. When did the ancient beast language become so easy to learn? Could he have really wasted the last 50 years of his life for nothing? Otherwise, how could the results from his 50 years be unable to match up to 10 minutes of the other party's efforts? Just as he was on the verge of a breakdown, he saw the young man and the great violet wing beast in the sky wrapping up their negotiation. Following which, the young man returned with a peculiar expression on his face. How did it go? Putting everything aside, Elder Chen quickly turned to look at Zhongxian and asked anxiously, "What did it say to you?" Throughout these years, he had been dying to know what the draconic granite beast had said before his death, as well as to understand why the great violet wing beast had kept pestering the beast hall over the years. This was the reason why he was able to persevere in his study of the ancient beast language for 50 years. The great violet wing beast says that. At which, Zhongxian scratched his head. It wants you to die. I knew it. After all, I was the one who caused the death of our draconic granite beast. As the culprit who resulted in the death of its lover, it is natural that it would harbor such deep hatred for me. Elder Chen suddenly looked as though he had aged 10 years. If not for his obstinacy and complacency back then, he wouldn't have been severely injured, and the draconic granite beast wouldn't have sacrificed itself for him either. As the draconic granite beast's companion, it was no wonder the great violet-winged beast wanted him dead. Cough cough. That's not it. Seeing Elder Qian falling into an endless spiral of self-reproach, Zhongxian hurriedly pulled him back. That's not it. Then what is the reason? Elder Qian was taken aback. It's because of what the draconic granite beast said before his death. Zhongxian replied. What the draconic granite beast said before his death? The great violet-winged beast told you his dying message? Elder Qian was so agitated that his entire body began trembling. Over the past few decades, he had been dying to know the dying will of the draconic granite beast, but it was a pity that the great violet-winged beast refused to say anything at all. Or perhaps, he was simply unable to comprehend the latter's words, and that only amplified his guilt. Seeing how Zhongshe uttered these words after conversing with the great violet-winged beast, could it be that the great violet-winged beast had revealed the draconic granite beast's dying message? That's right. The peculiar expression on Zhongxian's face intensified. What did he say? Did he tell me to live well in his stead? Recalling the bits and pieces that he and his loyal tamed beast had gone through together, Elder Qian's eyes turned red. Tears began flowing uncontrollably from his eyes. The draconic granite beast said. Conflicted, Zhongxian hesitated for a long moment before finally spitting it out. He said that. I am not dead. Not dead. Elder Qian's body swayed weakly, and he spurted a mouthful of fresh blood. Bibi, but I buried him. Elder Qian had always thought the last words of the draconic granite beast were entrusting its hopes and wishes to him. Who would have thought that its words would be, I am not dead. The heck. I have even felt his body. Stiff and frigid, how could he possibly still be alive? Furthermore, even if he wasn't dead then, having been buried underground for 50 years, he couldn't still be alive now. Not only was Elder Qian frenzied, even Luo Chichi and Yu Fei also widened their eyes, and they nearly fainted from shock. They had shed a tear earlier on after hearing the touching story of how the loyal draconic granite beast died for its master. Who could have known that it would actually be a horror story instead? To be buried alive. After 50 years, it should have long suffocated to death. Hall Master Qin and the elders also found their bodies trembling in shock at the revelation. For you, your tamed beast went to the extent of even offering its own blood essence, and yet you buried it alive. Given your doings, it would be a wonder if its companion was willing to let you off. Honestly speaking, it was already being very magnanimous by only wreaking havoc in the Beast Hall all these years. Zhongxian and the others also shared the same thoughts as well. But in the end, Elder Qian was also an innocent party too. How could he have known that the draconic granite beast was still alive then? Furthermore, he had also been tortured with guilt throughout these years as well. Thus, Zhongxian turned to him and asked, Did you cremate the draconic granite beast? That. I didn't. Elder Qian shook his head. In truth, he did intend to cremate it back then, but the great violet-winged beast came to wreak havoc. Thinking that the great violet-winged beast was unwilling to see its companion being reduced to ash, he decided to simply bury it in the mountain forest and accompany it for life. It's good that you didn't. Based on what the great violet-winged beast said, the draconic granite beast is just in a state of pseudo-death. After a period of rest and nourishment, he should be able to be revived. Even though you've buried him, it's fortunate that you didn't cremate him. There might still be a chance. Zhongxian said. The great violet-winged beast had explained the matter thoroughly to him just now. The draconic granite beast possessed the dragon bloodline and a tough exterior reminiscent of granite, thus the origin of the name. After losing its blood essence, its body would become cold and rigid like a rock, similar to a corpse. Its breathing and heartbeat would also come to a temporary halt. However, this wasn't death in the truest sense. As long as it was well nourished in the time to come, it should be possible to awaken it very quickly. As the draconic granite beasts had always been a rare species, and there had never been a case where one voluntarily gave away a huge amount of its blood essence, such a phenomenon wasn't recorded in the books. As such, not even a 5-star beast tamer like Elder Qian was aware of this ability of the draconic granite beast. Considering how the draconic granite beast had stopped its breathing and heartbeat, even if it was buried, as long as it wasn't cremated and hadn't decomposed yet, there should still be a chance of survival. No matter what, that was a powerful transcendent mortal 8-dan spirit beast harnessing the dragon bloodline within it. There was no way it could die that easily. There is still a chance. Elder Qian's eyes lit up for a moment before dimming again in sorrow. But he has been buried for 50 years already. If it had just been a few months or even a year, there might still be a chance. But 50 years had passed, and there wasn't the slightest sign of recovery for the draconic granite beast. This period of time was more than sufficient for a pseudo-death to become real. Calm down, let's go over and take a look first. It'll be best if we can save him, but otherwise, it is still worth a shot. Zhongxian sighed deeply. Who asked you to bury your tamed beast alive? The only thing we can do now is to quickly bring him out and diagnose his condition. Even if it were to end up futile in the end, at least this matter can be put to an end. UN. Elder Qian quickly nodded and led the group to the backyard of the log house. At that moment, Zhongxian suddenly recalled something and turned to the great violet-wing beast with a frown on his face. What are you waiting for? Put that spirit beast down. Roar. The great violet-wing beast released its claws indignantly. Boom. Falling onto the ground, the spirit beast fainted. Chapter 690. Saving the draconic granite beast. After saving that innocent spirit beast, everyone rushed over to the log house. Soon, they saw a tombstone with a mound behind it. Knowing that this matter was extremely urgent, Zhongxian firmly instructed, "Open it." Nodding, Elder Qian gathered his strength and grabbed at the soil. Hong long long. A dense layer of zhenqi surged from his hands, and a powerful might swept through the mound, pushing away the soil. Soon, a massive tomb came into appearance. You built a tomb? It seems like there's still hope. Seeing that Elder Qian didn't simply bury the draconic granite beast in the ground, Zhongxian heaved a sigh of relief. Even in a state of pseudo-death, the organs of the draconic granite beast were still functioning, albeit very slowly, to keep it away from death's door. As such, it would still require oxygen to survive. At the very least, with this massive tomb, the draconic granite beast could be spared from the fate of asphyxiation. In a sense, this was a blessing amidst a field of misfortune. Opening the gates to the tomb, the crowd immediately rushed in. Soon, they arrived at a vast hall where the massive draconic granite beast laid. That huge fellow seemed to be made entirely of stones. Despite the passing of 50 years, there was no signs of decomposition on it. As expected of the draconic granite beast. After taking a glance, Zhongxian nodded in awe. 50 years was more than enough time to decompose the entirety of an average spirit beast's body. And yet, perhaps it was due to the possession the dragon bloodline and a tough granite exterior, the draconic granite beast's physical body still seemed to be in a good condition. Seeing that the corpse was still completely intact, Elder Qian's hands immediately started trembling in agitation. He hurriedly turned to Han Chong and instructed, "Hurry up and call a physician." "Teacher, Zhongshe is a very formidable physician himself," Han Chong quickly replied. Hearing Han Chong's words, Elder Qian immediately kneeled down before Zhongxian and pleaded. "Zhongshe, I beg you, save my draconic granite beast." The draconic granite beast was his closest companion, and ever since its passing, he had spent every single day living in self-reproach. He thought that he would never get a chance to see it again, but to think that the other party was still alive. Even if he had to give up his life to resuscitate the draconic granite beast, he would definitely offer it without any hesitation. On top of that, he also felt deep guilt. The other party had put himself in a state of pseudo-death to save him, and yet due to his inability to comprehend the other party's words, he actually buried his tamed beast alive for 50 long years. If the draconic granite beast couldn't be saved, then he would have no face to continue living in this world. Most likely, he would commit suicide out of guilt. Elder Qian, there's no need to stand on ceremony. If there's still a chance, I'll surely try my best to save your draconic granite beast. Understanding Elder Qian's sentiments, Zhongxian stepped forward and touched the draconic granite beast. After which, he circled around the latter and fell into deep thought. A few moments later, he walked back with a stern face. Seeing the look on Zhongxian's face, Elder Qian's body stiffened in anxiety. Can he still be saved? He is indeed still alive, but... At which, Zhongxian hesitated for a moment before continuing. After being buried for 50 years, the vitality in his body has been completely depleted. To resuscitate him, I will require pills that can stimulate one's vitality, as well as spirit stones. Pills to stimulate vitality? I have 3 void treading creation pills over here. It's highly effective even on transcendent mortal 8 Dan void treading realm expert. Hall Master Qin stepped forward and passed Jade bottle over. I also have 2 spirit nurturing pills here. It's the ideal medicine to stimulate one's vitality, another elder offered. I don't have any pills, but I do have quite a few spirit stones. Here are 500 middle-tier spirit stones. They were all old friends with Elder Qian, and they knew that the revival of the draconic granite beast would surely be a huge relief to him. On top of that, this was also beneficial to the beast hall as a whole. Good. Seeing the huge collection of items before him, Zhongxian nodded in satisfaction. I still need a 5 elements formation flag, purple ink bamboo, 3 big buckets of beast blood for that. The great violet wing beast outside will suffice, as well as faint verdant incense, purple crystal smoke. After seeing the pills and spirit stones that Hall Master Qin and the other elders had contributed, Zhongxian couldn't help but be impressed by the wealth of the beast hall. Following which, Zhongxian also named a few dozen more items. These. Hearing the names of the items Zhongxian listed, everyone frowned in confusion. They could understand why the treatment of the draconic granite beast would require vitality pills and spirit stones. After all, those could help nourish one's body. But what use would the faint verdant incense and purple crystal smoke be to the treatment? An elder suddenly recalled something and spoke. I've heard of faint verdant incense. It has the ability of stabilizing one's soul. It is said that it was often used by the soul oracles in the past. Everyone was taken aback. Soul oracles? The occupation had already disappeared in the river of history several dozen millenniums ago, but could the young man before them be a soul oracle? It is just some unique method I know of. It doesn't have much of a relation to the soul oracles. Zhongxian waved his hands casually. Right, prepare 108 3-kai-long silver needles and a cup of the emerald-tailed viper's saliva. Despite their extinction, soul oracles were still viewed in revile by the populace due to their betrayal back then. Thus, there was no way Zhongxian could reveal that he was adept in the arts of the soul oracles. The saliva of the emerald-tailed viper? But that's lethal venom. Hall Master Qin exclaimed. He might not have known the uses of the faint verdant incense and purple crystal smoke, but he knew of the properties of the emerald-tailed viper well. Just a single drop was sufficient to kill a transcendent mortal 8 Dan expert. Why would Zhongxian want such a dangerous thing? Poison doesn't just kill, it can heal as well, replied Zhongxian. Healing another through poison? But that's an ability only poison masters are capable of. Everyone's lips twitched in frenzy. Even though poison was indeed capable of healing, poison was still poison in the end. Use it incorrectly and it could cost someone's life. Thus, only poison masters would dare to use poison to concoct remedies to heal someone. Wasn't the young man before them a physician? Why was he able to utilize the means of a soul oracle? Why was he able to concoct poison like a poison master? Not to mention, he was also a master teacher and a beast tamer capable of speaking the ancient beast language. Was he incapable of anything? Alright, I'll need this stuff. Hurry up and prepare it all. After listing down the items he required, Zhongxian gestured for them to hurry. Alright, I'll have my men prepare it now. Elder Qian nodded and hurriedly left. The beast hall's financial power and connections were truly astonishing. Not only were the items which Zhongxian listed extremely rare, they were also diverse in terms of type and properties. If it had been an average occupational guild, it would have surely taken a long time for them to gather those items together. However, in less than 6 hours, the beast hall actually managed to obtain all of the required items. In fact, they even prepared spares in case of emergencies. Now that all of the items are here, I'll have to ask everyone to leave. I need absolute silence during my treatment, so I hope that you can help me by standing guard outside so as to prevent anyone from interrupting the treatment. Zhongxian had thought that even with the Beast Hall's connections, it would still take 3 to 4 days to gather all of the items. Yet, within a mere 6 hours, they had already succeeded. He couldn't help but be impressed by the Beast Hall's logistical ability. The reason he asked them to leave was due to the nature of his treatment. He would need to utilize various means that could possibly sully his name as a master teacher, and on top of that, he would also have to continuously employ the Library of Heaven's Path. If outsiders were to be around, that could probably spell trouble. All right. Hall Master Chen, Elder Qin, and the others nodded before backing out of the tomb. Luo Chichi and Yu Fei exchanged momentary glances before leaving as well. Soon, Zhongxian was the only one remaining inside the tomb. Looking at the pile of valuable items before him, Zhongxian flicked his wrist and placed them all inside his storage ring. Then, with another flick of his wrist, he threw the formation plate of the Spirit Gathering formation out. He didn't ask for these items for his own use, he truly needed them to treat the Draconic Granite Beast. Back then, when the Draconic Granite Beast depleted his blood essence to save Elder Chen, as long as Elder Chen had replenished the other party's blood essence, fed it nourishing herbs to stimulate its recovery, or nurtured it using spiritual energy, it would have been able to make a full recovery within a few years. However, not only did Elder Chen fail to do any of the 3 above, he even buried it. On top of that, the spiritual energy contained within the tomb was extremely limited, making it difficult for the Draconic Granite Beast to sustain its life. Placed in such conditions for 50 years, even though it still managed to hold on to its last breath, its life was hanging by a thread as though a candle flame before a raging wind, ready to be extinguished at any moment. Even if an 8-star or even 9-star physician were here, there would surely be nothing they could have done under such circumstances. However, Zhongxian was different. He possessed the absolutely pure Heaven's Path Shenqi. As long as there was still a breath left in his patient, he would be able to sustain the latter's life. However, just Heaven's Path Shenqi wouldn't suffice. The Draconic Granite Beast had suffered a severe loss of blood essence, and it was buried for several decades in such a weak state. It desperately needed an overwhelming amount of spiritual energy to nourish its feeble body, as well as medicinal herbs to boost its vitality. And more importantly, its soul had to be summoned back to its body. Just like what the elder before had said, the faint verdant incense and purple crystal smoke were mainly items that only soul oracles would use. Given that the Draconic Granite Beast had been unconscious for more than 50 years, it wasn't too far off from Lu Chong's situation back then. Thus, such items were required to summon back its soul before it could be resuscitated. As for the saliva of the emerald-tailed viper, Hall Master Qin was right in the sense that it was indeed a lethal venom. However, Zhongxian intended on using it to stimulate the other party's acupoint so as to trigger the other party's awakening. It could be said that this treatment involved the means of a beast tamer, soul oracle, physician, poison master, and master teacher. It would truly be difficult for anyone else to accomplish this feat. Only a monster like Zhongxian could possibly do so. As soon as the formation plate landed, Zhongxian immediately threw in the spirit stones which the elders had just contributed, and a thick layer of spiritual energy immediately filled the area, shrouding the corpse of the Draconic Granite Beast. With a snap of his fingers, the silver needles which he had prepared beforehand appeared in his hands, and he dabbed them in the cup of emerald-tailed viper's saliva. With movements as swift as lightning, the 108 needles flew out and sealed the 108 acupoints throughout the Draconic Granite Beast's body in the blink of an eye. The Draconic Granite Beast was an extremely rare spirit beast. For the past several dozen millenniums, the beast tamers who had managed to tame it didn't even number more than 10. As such, no one knew about the matter of its pseudo-death, and the knowledge concerning it wasn't passed down either. Since even its abilities were unrecorded, naturally, the same applied to its physical structure as well. It was only through the book formed by the Library of Heaven's Path that Zhongxian knew where its various acupoints were. After sealing the acupoints, Zhongxian took out the faint verdant incense and purple crystal smoke and positioned them in a unique formation before lighting them. Following which, he sat down on the floor and closed his eyes. Hong Long. His soul was drawn out from his body. Activating the Eye of Insight, Zhongxian surveyed the surroundings before beckoning in a specific direction. His movements were light and gentle, as though a gesture to call upon one's lover. Wang. Seemingly sensing his beckoning, the silver needle at the specific location began ringing like a wind chime. The unique ability of a soul oracle, soul beckoning. Zhongxian had inherited the complete heritage of the soul oracles from Mo Hunsheng, and soul beckoning was one of the techniques included in it. Once executed, it could draw even the most deeply hidden souls out. In fact, it could even draw out the souls of living beings. Considering how the draconic granite beast had been in a coma for 50 years, it would be exceedingly difficult to wake it using normal means. Thus, Zhongxian had no choice but to resort to such extreme methods. He had to move very carefully or else this could end in a catastrophe. Gu. The silver needle shook for an instant, and the draconic granite beast suddenly began shaking. It slowly lifted its body up, seemingly coming to life. No, this shouldn't be. But upon seeing this sight, Zhongxian's face darkened. Chapter 691. Great Violet Wing Beast Submit. Under normal circumstances, soul beckoning should only draw out one's soul. The movement of the corpse could only mean one thing: the soul was glued to the physical body. Under such circumstances, it would be even more difficult to wake the draconic granite beast up. Humph. With a light harumph, Zhongxian flicked his finger, and the 5 elements formation flags which he'd had the others prepare beforehand were immediately lodged into the ground. The gathering of the 5 elements to complement yin-yang. This was yet another technique of the soul oracles, soul cleave. A human soul comprises 3 hun and 7 po, and the same applies to beasts as well. Due to the long dormant state of the draconic granite beast, a portion of his hun and po had been fully integrated into his body over time, making it difficult to extract his soul. Zhongxian was intending to use soul cleave to tear off the integrated hun and po from the entire soul so as to augment the extraction process. But of course, altering the course of nature was no easy feat. Thus, he required assistance from the might of the 5 elements. As the 5 elements amalgamate into one, yin-yang would be formed, creating a clear demarcation between clarity and turbidity. Hong Long Long. As the 5-element formation flags began to whir into action, the flora and fauna around the tomb started to turn yellow as the energy of wood was being sapped from them. The soil gradually turned white as the energy of earth was being drained from it. Metallic objects began to rust as the energy of metal was robbed from them. The same applied to the energy of water and energy of flame as well. The retrieved energy was gathered and fused into the glabella of the draconic granite beast. Along with the infusion of the 5-element energies, the yin and yang aura within the other party grew significantly stronger, and a tinge of redness began surfacing on the cold and rigid rock-like corpse. Knowing that his primary preparations were effective, Zhongxian heaved a sigh of relief. Zila. The soul of the massive draconic granite beast was drawn from the massive draconic granite beast, and it floated silently in the air. However, its eyes were tightly shut, a sign that it was still deeply asleep. Usually, when a soul was torn off from its body, it would swiftly weaken and eventually dissipate in the surroundings. However, the lit faint verdant incense stabilized the draconic granite beast's soul, allowing it to remain impervious before the chaotic energies lingering in the tomb. Go. Taking a deep breath, Zhongxian flicked his finger, and the vitality pills which the other elders had given him were converted into a thick layer of mist that gathered within the concentrated spiritual energy in the region. The overwhelming vitality in the air made Zhongxian feel revitalized and comfortable. Since these pills were highly useful even for transcendent mortal 8-dan experts, naturally, it would be effective on him as well. Just that, as his body had been nourished by the heaven's path Shinchi, vitality wasn't something that he would lack. Thus, using these valuable pills on him would be a huge waste. Now, the final step. Holding his breath, Zhongxian stepped against the ground and soared into the air. Withdraw. 108 faint surges of zhenqi shot out from Zhongxian's hands, each grabbing hold of the end of a silver needle and pulling on them simultaneously. Tzz la. The silver needles immediately flew out. The acupoints, which had been sealed by the venom a moment ago, immediately opened up as though a humongous floodgate. With a rumbling reminiscent of thunder, the spiritual energy and the mist were swiftly pulled into the draconic granite beast's body as though a whirlpool had been formed on the spot. Due to the overwhelming strength of the absorption, even the soul which had stabilized itself in the air was dragged in as well. Hula! As the vitality medicine, spiritual energy, and soul were dragged into the draconic granite beast's body, Zhongxian flicked his hand, and 3 pails of beast blood immediately appeared above the draconic granite beast. It flowed down in a steady stream, seeping into the latter's body. Slowly, the rock-like body of the draconic granite beast began to turn crimson, and several mystical inscriptions abruptly appeared on it. Eventually, the sounds of breathing and a heart beating gradually returned. It seemed the unconscious fellow would wake up at any moment. I have succeeded. Zhongxian's body suddenly staggered, and he fell from the sky, crashing onto the ground. Fortunately, the altitude wasn't too high, so he was unharmed. But even so, his face was pale with exhaustion. Even though the duration of the treatment wasn't too long, Zhongxian had utilized nearly all of the ability at his disposal during it. This had resulted in significant depletion in his zhengqi, psyche, soul energy, and stamina. Sitting on the ground, Zhongxian flicked his wrist and took out a spirit stone. It was only after absorbing around 20 middle-tier spirit stones did Zhongxian finally recover fully from his depletion. I have made a loss. Looking at the powdery fragments of the middle-tier spirit stones before him, Zhongxian frowned in frustration. He thought that it wouldn't be too difficult to save the draconic granite beast, and he might even have some leftovers remaining that he could claim for his own use. But contrary to his expectations, not only were there no leftovers, he even had to use more than 20 of his own middle-tier spirit stones to recuperate from his exhaustion. But at the very least, he didn't let down the expectations of those standing outside and soil his own name. Shaking his head, Zhongxian pushed open the gates of the tomb and stepped out. As soon as he walked out, the anxious gazes of Elder Qian and the others immediately gathered on him. How is the draconic granite beast? Perhaps due to excessive worry and anxiety, Elder Qian's face was extremely pale. The operation was a success. However, due to the prolonged period of its coma, he has yet to wake up yet. It might take a few days before he can regain consciousness, Zhongxian said calmly. The other party's soul had been dormant for more than 50 years. Even with Zhongxian's means, it would still take a while for the latter to regain its strength and awaken. Great. I'll go in and take a look. Hearing Zhongxian's words, Elder Qian's eyes immediately lit up, and he immediately rushed toward the tomb. However, before he could enter it, he suddenly felt a sharp pain on his body. A huge talon had grabbed him and threw him to the side. The great violet wing beast. This fellow had just lost 3 huge pails of blood, and its body was still a little weak at the moment. Nevertheless, its eyes were brimming with spirit, and the aggressive aura it emanated earlier on had disappeared without a trace. Scrunching its body together, it entered the tomb. Seeing how the great violet wing beast seemed to be even more excited than him, a bitter smile flashed across Elder Qian's face before hurriedly following behind it. When he finally came out a moment later, he immediately walked up to Zhongxian and kneeled down in agitation. Elder Qian, this. Not expecting that Han Chong's teacher, an esteemed 5-star pinnacle beast tamer, would actually kneel before him so abruptly, Zhongxian was astonished. He hurriedly stepped forward to help the other party up. Kowtowing heavily several times, Elder Qian raised his palm and made a vow. Zhongshe, please do not stop me. You have saved his life, and I am extremely grateful to you. I owe you a debt of life. Regardless of whatever request you have of me in the future, feel free to speak, and I'll surely accomplish it for you no matter the cost. Ever since the death of the draconic granite beast, he had become nothing more than a living corpse. For the past 50 years, the only faith that was keeping him alive was his determination to learn the ancient beast language so as to learn of the dying will of his closest companion. Who could have known that not only would the young man be able to decipher the words of the great violet-winged beast, he would even undo the mistake he had made and bring his tamed beast back? The gratitude he was feeling at the moment was indescribable through words. Even if Zhongxian were to order him to march off to his death now, he would do so without any hesitation. This. Seeing the determination in the elder Qian's eyes, Zhongxian knew that there was nothing he could do that could sway his decision. Thus, he shook his head and said, "All right, I don't need your life. It'll suffice as long as you find me a transcendent mortal 8-dan aerial spirit beast so that I can get to Hongyuan Empire." The main reason he came to the Beast Hall was so that he could find an aerial spirit beast to ride on. With Elder Qian's help, he should have no trouble finding one. "Leave this to me." Elder Qian nodded. But halfway through his words, Jia, the gates to the tomb opened once more, and the great violet-winged beast walked out. Just like Elder Qian, it immediately walked up to Zhongxian and bowed down, and it began nudging Zhongxian with its head. This is a gesture of submission. Seeing the great violet-winged beast's response, everyone was astonished. Even Hall Master Qin was dumbfounded. The Beast Hall had suffered greatly under the tyranny of the great violet-winged beast. Nothing they did and no one they sought help from could stop it, and they were completely helpless before it. They thought that considering its obstinate and domineering personality, it would be impossible for anyone to tame it. But who could have guessed that it would actually voluntarily submit to Zhongshe, whom it had only met 8 hours ago? This fellow is even more sentimental than humans. It is out of gratitude to Zhongshe saving Draconic Granite Beast that it chose to voluntarily submit to him, Luo Chichi exclaimed. Yu Fei nodded. Indeed. Sometimes, beasts can turn out to be even more sentimental than humans. Despite the fact that it had been 50 years since the Draconic Granite Beast had been buried, the great violet-winged beast had still been unable to let the matter go. The only way it could alleviate its raging emotions was to exact vengeance for its companion. Through this, it could be shown how deep its feelings for the latter were. Upon seeing its lover come to life, an overwhelming feeling of indebtedness compelled it to acknowledge Zhongxian as its master and serve as his tamed beast. Such deep sentiments weren't necessarily seen in all humans. Zhongxian also came to realize what was going on. He turned to face the great violet-winged beast and asked the latter seriously, "Do you wish to become my tamed beast?" It just happened that he needed a spirit beast to travel to Hongyuan Empire, and it would be for the best if the great violet-winged beast was willing to become his tamed beast. Roar. The great violet-winged beast nodded its massive head. Good. With a flick of Zhongxian's finger, a droplet of his blood flew to the great violet-winged beast, thus sealing the contract. All right. You should get some rest and recover. Once the Draconic Granite Beast comes to, we'll immediately set off for Hongyuan Empire, Zhongxian said. To save the Draconic Granite Beast, the great violet-winged beast had lost 3 huge pails of fresh blood, and it was currently in an extremely weak state. Even if it was still capable of flight in its current condition, it would surely be unable to maintain it for too long. Since that was the case, it would be much better for it to get a good rest and recover from its frailty first. Furthermore, there were many nourishing medicines in the Beast Hall that could hasten the great violet-winged beast's recovery. With Elder Qian taking care of it, it wouldn't take too long for it to recover. And most importantly of all, the great violet-winged beast had been waiting for the Draconic Granite Beast for an entire 50 years now. It would be cruel to separate them before the Draconic Granite Beast awakened. In any case, the great violet-winged beast was a half 9-dan spirit beast, so Zhongxian had a few days to spare. Learning that Zhongxian and the others would be staying there for some time, Elder Qian immediately had someone prepare some rooms for them. In the first 3 days of his stay, Zhongxian traveled all around the Beast Hall and collected all of the books contained within it. After which, he spent another day thoroughly mastering the Heaven's Path beast taming art compiled from those books. In just 4 days, Zhongxian's understanding of beast taming had already surpassed Elder Qian and even Hall Master Qin, reaching 5-star pinnacle or even beyond that. Even though Zhongxian had successfully tamed the great violet-winged beast, due to his limited cultivation as a transcendent mortal 5-dan consonant spirit realm pinnacle, he only received a half 5-star beast tamer emblem. Nevertheless, as long as he could achieve a breakthrough in his cultivation, he would be able to immediately apply for a 5-star beast tamer emblem. On the 8th day, the Draconic Granite Beast woke up, and the great violet-winged beast and Elder Qian were delighted. At the same time, their awe for Zhongxian's capability also deepened. Even Hall Master Qin and the others were also impressed by Zhongxian's skill. To save a spirit beast who had been in a state of pseudo-death for 50 years, this was already on the level of a miracle. On the 10th day, the great violet-winged beast finally made a full recovery. Thus, Zhongxian, Luo Qiqi, and Yu Fei bade the beast hall goodbye and set off toward Hongyuan Empire. Zhong Shi will surely become the brightest star of the Master Teacher Academy. Watching the trio leave, Elder Qian recalled the various incredible feats the young man had achieved and sighed. Han Chong's lips couldn't help but twitch upon hearing those words. Brightest star? I only fear that the Master Teacher Academy will find itself in the abyss of misfortune. Chapter 692, Rules of the Master Teacher Academy. Han Chong had heard a little of the various trouble Zhongxian had stirred up in Myriad Kingdom City and Huanyu Empire. Like a tornado, he left nothing but ruination in his wake. It was hard to tell whether it would be a fortune or misfortune for the Master Teacher Academy to have a student like him. Han Chong couldn't help but solemnly pray for the long-established institution in his mind. High above the clouds, great violet-winged beast glided across the sky. It was dragging something that resembled a 7 to 8 meters ship behind it. The ship consisted of 3 rooms, and Zhongxian, Luo Qiqi, and Yu Fei took one each. A flying ship. The Beast Hall had crafted this for Zhongxian in gratitude to him for freeing them from the tyranny of Great Violet-Winged Beast. This magnificent flying ship had an elegant design, and all kinds of amenities were present on it. It was said that this flying ship had cost the Beast Hall several thousand middle-tier spirit stones, and only after hearing this piece of news did Zhongxian feel a little more balanced inside. After all, in order to save Draconic Granite Beast, he even had to use his own middle-tier spirit stones. At the very least, he should obtain something in return. If those from the Beast Hall were to learn of his thoughts, they would surely spurt blood. Zhongxian had tamed the strongest spirit beast in their region and was gifted such a valuable flying ship, and yet he only felt that it was a fair exchange at this point. Wasn't he being a little too greedy? Would he only be happy after he robbed the Beast Hall of its entire wealth? While Zhongxian didn't have any intention of cleaning out the Beast Hall, he did secretly wish to receive 1 or 2 high-tier spirit stones in exchange for his effort. However, it was a pity that all of Elder Qian's wealth had gone to the great violet-winged beast throughout the years, so even producing 100 middle-tier spirit stones was impossible for him. On the deck of the flying ship, Luo Qiqi walked up to Zhongxian. "Teacher." Zhongxian turned to her and asked, "You came at a good time. I recall you saying that there is the apothecary school and blacksmith school in the Master Teacher Academy. Can you tell me more about it?" Since he was about to enroll in the Master Teacher Academy, he should at least gather some basic knowledge regarding it. It is a fundamental prerequisite for a master teacher to have sufficient supporting occupations before they can be promoted to a higher rank. As such, on top of imparting the various ways of a master teacher, the Master Teacher Academy also provides supporting occupation classes for its students to take on, Luo Qiqi explained. After many years of development, the Master Teacher Academy has grown to consist of 10 schools. They are namely the Apothecary School, Blacksmith School, Celestial Designer School, Formation Master School, Painter School, Martial Arts School, Beast Tamer School, Physician School, Demonic Tunist School, and Terpsichorean School. The Apothecary School is a place where one studies the art of pill forging, and it is from there that I learned my pill forging skills. On the other hand, the Blacksmith School is a place where one learns how to smith weapons. Given my previous mastery of smithing, I wasn't able to rank amidst the top 100 there. However, after receiving teachers' guidance, I'll surely be able to make a name for myself there. The same applies for the Celestial Designer School, Formation Master School, Painter School, and Physician School as well, so I won't explain them. I'll talk about the Martial Arts School, Demonic Tunist School, and Terpsichorean School instead. Zhongxian nodded. The Celestial Designer School was definitely a place where celestial designers learned about the complex engineering designs and mechanisms. He could tell so much from Wu Zhen. It was probably the same for the Formation Master School, Physician School, and Painter School as well. Zhongxian had once studied these occupations, so he had a considerable understanding of them. It was only the remaining 3 which he had an incomplete knowledge of. The martial arts school isn't a support occupation school. Rather, it is a place to temper the fighting prowess of the master teachers. It conducts tournaments every now and then, and those who perform well will be allowed to study the top-notch battle techniques of the academy, thus further enhancing their fighting prowess. As for the demonic tunist school, it is a place where demonic tunists are groomed. Has teacher heard of demonic tunists before? Luo Chichi asked. Yuen. I have heard bits and pieces of it before. It is a lower 9 paths occupation, but its members are able to beguile hearts and crush souls through the utilization of melody. Even true experts find it hard to guard against such attacks. Zhong Xian nodded. Not only had Zhong Xian heard of demonic tunists, he had even met 2 of them before. However, neither one of them seemed to have fared well from the encounter with him. One was nearly driven mad by him while the other party plummeted straight from the sky. Yes, you're right. As for the Terpsichorean school, it is a place where terpsichores are groomed. Luo Chichi smiled. Terpsichores? You mean dancers? Zhong Xian was taken aback. That's right, dancers. Luo Chichi nodded. Dancers are actually similar to demonic tunists in many ways. Through aligning their dance with nature, they can enthrall their target with their elegant movements, drawing in spellbound birds and bewitching even experts. Zhong Xian nodded. Since there were dancers in the world, it was only natural that there would be an occupation regarding it. The founder of the occupation went by the surname of Gong Sun, and legend has it that her dances could even rivet saints. It was said that when Gong Sun was younger, her entire clan was purged by the hands of its enemies. Having survived the calamity, this huge grudge was heaped onto her shoulders. One day, while she was in the midst of studying the freely flying birds in the air, enlightenment suddenly struck her, and she created the terpsichore occupation. After training for 30 years, she emerged from her seclusion and awed the world with her enthralling dances. Before long, she caught the attention of a certain conferred empire, and she was invited over to perform for the royal family. The emperor of this conferred empire happened to be Gongsun's enemy, and he was a saint expert at that time. However, as soon as Gong Sun began dancing, it was as if the entire world was revolving around her. No eyes could tear away from her, and no mind could remain rational before her. In his riveted state, even the Saint Realm Emperor was killed easily. Just as she was escaping from the capital, she was surrounded by 1,000,000 guards. However, through her dance, she persuaded all of them to put down their weapons and allow her to leave, and eventually, the entire matter became a legend that spread far and wide across the entire master-teacher continent. After learning of this matter, Kongsha once visited Gong Sun to witness her dance. After the performance, he was filled with compliments for the latter and left behind the following words, sighing at the fleeting moment, pursuing the terpsichore for one more gaze. It was then that the occupation was put amidst the ranks of the 9 paths, and the name terpsichore became known throughout the world. This occupation was also among the lower 9 paths, and it was mainly pursued by women. As those who studied this art were even rarer than demonic tunists, not many knew of this occupation. By some stroke of luck, Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy managed to receive the heritage for this occupation and established the Terpsichorean school. However, due to its limited members, it was considered as the weakest of the 10 schools. Luo Chichi chuckled. Yu Feiya has been studying the art ever since she was young, and just recently, she passed the 5-star terpsichore examination. Zhong Xian nodded. The Master Teacher Academy was very similar to the universities in his previous life, where the academy was divided into many faculties as well. The master teachers studying in the Master Teacher Academy could choose to undertake any supporting occupation that interested them and advance in that path. Honestly speaking, it was indeed an excellent place to groom master teachers. It was no wonder why it was an esteemed organization even within a Tier 1 empire. Even though many master teachers view the Master Teacher Academy as their goal, it is no paradise inside there. The Master Teacher Academy is extremely competitive, and regardless of what one intends to do, be it to study or to listen in a lecture, one must have sufficient academic credits. Otherwise, it'll be hard for one to make any progress in there. And to earn academic credits, one will have to accomplish all kinds of missions or clear the difficult tests set by the academy. There are some master teachers who choose to withdraw from the academy due to their inability to withstand the stressful environment, and there are also a few who are expelled due to their poor result. At which, Luo Chichi's face turned grim. Withdraw? Expelled? All along, Zhongxian had thought that entering the academy in itself was a gateway to success. However, that didn't seem to be the case. That's right. Back then, when Kongsha first established the Master Teacher Academy, he once said that the master teachers are the crux to the advancement of mankind. Only with strong teachers can humanity be strong. As such, the Master Teacher Academy didn't need any unmotivated students. The only choices before them are to push forward or to leave. It's that simple. Saying those words, Luo Chichi smiled bitterly. Only with strong teachers can humanity be strong. Zhongxian's body trembled at those words. Luo Chichi was right. If mankind wished to advance further, the role of teachers was of utmost importance. If students didn't have the right values in life, their accomplishments would be severely limited. If even the teachers had stagnated in their studies, how could they possibly groom motivated, driven students and bring humanity to greater heights? Zhongxian found himself relating deeply to these words. The strong emerges victorious whereas the weak are eliminated. Such was the way of the world. Not even the number one occupation of the world could be spared from this competition. Actually, teacher, you need not worry too much. Given your abilities, it will be extremely difficult for you to be expelled from the academy. Recalling the monstrous proficiency her teacher had shown in numerous occupations, Luo Chichi smiled bitterly. Then, she suddenly recalled something and added, however, there is an esteemed Master Teacher Elite Board that teacher can strive for. It'll be difficult, but I think teacher should be able to get a place on it with a few years of effort. Master Teacher Elite Board? UN. It is a ranking board in the Master Teacher Academy that automatically reflects the top 100 most outstanding students in the academy. Those who are listed in the ranks of the board are all formidable geniuses who are highly respected in the academy, Luo Chichi said. Zhongxian asked, the top 100 students of the academy? How many people are there in the academy? The Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy doesn't only accept students within Hongyuan Empire. It also recruits students from other Tier 1 empire, so there are at least several 100,000 people throughout the entire academy, and all of them are top-notch geniuses, explained Luo Chichi. Those who were able to enroll in the academy were all top geniuses in their own region. To be able to rank amidst the top of such a group was as difficult as ascending the heavens. Zhongsha might be formidable, but Luo Chichi still thought that it would be difficult for him to get on the board without several years of hard work. You aren't on the board? Zhongxian asked. Over the time Zhongxian had spent with Luo Chichi, he could tell that the latter was an extraordinary genius. Just by her cultivation, pill forging, and smithing skills, there would be very few of her peers who could match up to her. But even so, she still wasn't on the board. Me? How could I possibly be on the board? That board is tied to one's academic credits, cultivation, and eye of discernment. As such, it is mainly dominated by the upper grade students, so how could a grade 2 student like me possibly get on it? Luo Chichi shook her head. Naturally, the upper grade students had a higher chance of getting on the Master Teacher Elite Board as compared to the lower grade students. They had been in the academy for many years now, and they had accomplished innumerable missions, thus granting them a huge wealth of academic credits. On top of that, the grades in the academy were determined by the student's Master Teacher ranking, which was inadvertently related to one's cultivation. Naturally, a grade 2 student who had just joined the academy not too long ago wouldn't be able to surpass them so easily. I see. Hearing the other party's explanation, Zhongxian gained a substantial understanding of the Master Teacher Academy. He'd thought that it was just a place for one to learn and study, but things were far more complex than he had expected. It was no wonder even a princess like Yu Fei would have to participate in missions and face dangers for academic credits. It seemed like the academy doesn't compromise its policies for nobility. Such a competitive landscape was just to Zhongxian's liking. At the very least, he wouldn't be so bored. In an instant, endless fighting spirit suddenly sprouted within Zhongxian, and he began looking forward to entering the renowned Master Teacher Academy. In the next few days, whenever the both of them were free, Luo Chichi would explain the various rules of the Master Teacher Academy to Zhongxian, and in exchange, Zhongxian would guide her on her pill forging and smithing. Thus, in just 10 days, Luo Chichi's pill forging and smithing proficiency had risen significantly. Teacher, we have arrived at Hongyuan City. On a certain day, just as Zhongxian was explaining the essence of pill forging to Luo Chichi, he suddenly heard the latter's exclamation and lowered his gaze to take a look. He saw a massive city that was far larger than Huanyu Empire below him. Chapter 693. Salvage the situation? Even with the eye of insight, Zhongxian could hardly see the outskirts of the city. A capital of a Tier 1 empire is indeed grand. Zhongxian gazed across the lands. As expected of a Tier 1 capital, it was grand and domineering. In comparison to this, Tianxian Kingdom felt like a countryside village whose buildings were made of mud. In fact, just this city itself could match up to the entire area of Tianxian Kingdom. It seemed there was a massive formation that was controlling the weather and various other conditions of the city, thus bringing convenience and comfort to the population in the city. On top of that, the formation also seemed to draw in spiritual energy, thus making it easier for cultivators in the city to advance their cultivation. The ability to go against nature and alter the conditions of the land is an ability that only saints possess. Yu Fei walked over proudly. In this period of time, before the other party's formidable prowess, she felt nothing more like a countryside bumpkin. Thus, seeing the other party's astonishment upon seeing Hongyuan City, she immediately grasped this opportunity to boast. Yuan, even though Zhongxian was able to set up formations as well, and his capability was on par with most 5-star formation masters, it would still be difficult for him to create a massive environment-manipulating formation spanning over several thousand li. To set up such a formation, precise control was of absolute importance. Otherwise, a slight inaccuracy in the formation could easily result in devastating destruction. Recovering from the astonishment, Zhongxian said, "It is still a few days before the start of the school term. Hong Shi and the others should have just arrived as well, let's meet up with them first." 3 days were spent on the fusion of his body and his soul, and another 4 days was spent in the otherworldly demon's underground chamber. Following which, the time in the Beast Hall and the flight to Hongyuan City took up a total of 20 days, so there was still around 3 days before the start of the school term. Making a rough estimation, Hong Shi and the others should have arrived here already as well. The freshmen from Huanyu Empire usually reside in the academic sea. I'll take you over there first to settle in. After which, we'll have to return to the academy to report on our mission, Yu Fei said. They had uncovered such a huge secret in the midst of their mission, so it was necessary for them to make a formal report on the matter. Even though Xing Yuan and Wu Zhen had returned in advance, Wu Yong's handwritten book and the Crimson Blaze Cauldron were still in Luo Chichi's hand. On top of that, Zhongxian's return was also an important matter as well. Thus, they would have to explain everything face to face. Zhongxian nodded. Teacher, there are many other freshmen who reside in the academic sea as well. Most of them are geniuses in Tier 2 empires, and there is a possibility that some of them might even be from Hongyuan Empire. Thus, you must be careful not to get into a conflict with them, Luo Chichi advised grimly. Those who were termed as geniuses tended to be proud individuals. As the residence that the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy used to receive its freshmen, there were many geniuses amongst them. Some of them might even be from the royal family such as Yi Qian. Thus, if a conflict were to occur, not even a princess like Yu Fei would be in a good position to interfere. Don't worry, how could I possibly get into trouble that easily? Zhongxian chuckled. Luo Chichi and Yu Fei glanced at one another and shook their heads. With that natural disposition for trouble of yours, how can you say those words without blinking? On the very day of your arrival at Huanyu Empire, you sent Feng Shi and his group plummeting to the ground from a high altitude. Afterward, you pummeled up the top 3 rankers of the other vessel states. Following which, you turned into a corpse in the cleansing lake. In any case, calamity seemed to follow your footsteps, and you actually said that you won't get into trouble easily. The academic sea named as such due to the large number of freshmen coming from all directions. It was also commonly known as Academic Manor and Freshman Lodge. From the direction Zhongxian and the others were coming from, they weren't too far from the Master Teacher Academy. On top of that, the speed at which the great violet wing beast traveled was also incredible. Thus, they arrived at their destination very quickly. Stepping out of the flying ship, Zhongxian stowed it within this storage ring before bidding Luo Chichi and Yu Fei farewell. After which, he stepped through the gates of the academic sea, and numerous towering infrastructures immediately appeared before his eyes. Many young master teachers walked to and fro the compound with grace. Most of them looked like they were in their 20s, but the 4 stars pinned on their chest reflected their 4-star master teacher rank. Most of their cultivation levels had reached consonant spirit realm. As expected of the geniuses of the various sects, kingdoms, and empires. They were indeed exceptional. Walking in the direction Luo Chichi and the others had mentioned previously, Zhongxian soon arrived at a courtyard. Why is there no one guarding the door? After ascertaining that this was the location where the freshmen of Huanyu Empire lived, Zhongxian was perplexed by the lack of security. The other residences of the freshmen of other empires were either locked or heavily guarded. However, the door to Huanyu Empire's residence was wide open, but there wasn't a single figure in sight. Could it be that Hongshe and the others hadn't arrived yet? Bewildered, Zhongxian stepped into the residence. The courtyard was clean, signifying that the residence was often cleaned. Along the empty corridors and gazebo, there were signs that there had been people living here recently. It seems they have arrived. But why aren't they here then? Possessing the eye of insight, it wasn't difficult for Zhongxian to determine whether someone had been living in the residence or not. Just as he was perplexed by the lack of people in the area, he suddenly heard a loud crashing sound reminiscent of something knocking heavily onto the wall. There is a fight ahead. Zhongxian's face darkened, and he hurried forward. Turning around a corridor, he soon arrived at a vast main hall. Not too far away from the entrance was an average-sized dueling stage, and on it, 2 people were facing off with one another. A large group of people were gathered beneath the stage, and Hongshe and Fengshe were amongst the crowd. Ruo Huan Gongzi, Bai Jiang Hai, Luo Xian, and the others were seated below as well. However, their faces were swollen and bruised, as if someone had beaten them up just a moment ago. Zhongxian also recognized one of the fighters on the stage. It was one of the geniuses under Fengshe's lead, and his name was Han Ling. His cultivation was at the consonant spirit realm intermediate stage the last time Zhongxian saw him, but in less than a month, he had already broken through to consonant spirit realm advanced stage. Facing him was a grey-robed young man. The other party's cultivation was at the consonant spirit realm advanced stage as well, but his fighting prowess seemed to be far above Han Ling. In just a few blows, Han Ling was already forced to the corner of the stage. Go, Hansha. We mustn't lose anymore. That's right. If we were to lose, we'll be at their disposal. Luo Xian and the others clenched their fists tightly in indignation. What are they up to? As everyone was too engrossed in the battle, no one noticed Zhongxian's presence. Perplexed, Zhongxian scratched his head. Why would there be a duel going on here? Ha, stop struggling pointlessly and just admit defeat. Considering how none of you are able to defeat me, how can you possibly rival Senior Feng, whom I can barely withstand 3 blows from? Given such, you still wish to win? Dream on. As the grey-robed young man slowly forced Han Ling to a corner, a gleeful smile surfaced on his lips, and he laughed heartily. Don't worry, we'll surely take care of you well if you follow us. If you continue to act so obstinately, don't blame me for getting nasty. As the grey-robed young man spoke those words, his powerful blows continued raining down on Han Ling. Han Ling was using all of his might to withstand those attacks, but his face turned a shade paler with each strike. With just a momentary glance, Zhongxian could tell that Han Ling would fall in just a few more blows. Thus, he walked over to Hongshe and asked, Hongshe, what is going on? Ah, Zhongshe, you're fine? This is wonderful. Upon seeing Zhongshe, Hongshe nearly leaped from his seat in excitement. The others beneath the stage, including Luo Xian and the others, also noticed Zhongxian's presence, and their faces immediately flushed red in excitement. Even Xiulian Gongzi, who had been beaten to pulp by him at Huanyu Empire earlier, gazed at him with eyes reddened in agitation, as though Zhongxian was his long-lost kin. What's wrong? Seeing everyone's responses, Zhongxian was bewildered. They'd only been apart for a month. Was there any need for them to react so intensely to his presence? It's the freshman examination. Seeing the confused look on Zhongxian's face, Hongsha hurriedly explained, the examination topic has been decided. It will be hunting in the Hongyuan mountain range. Soon, Hongsha explained the entire matter to Zhongxian. After hearing the explanation, Zhongxian finally got a grasp of the situation. In truth, getting into the top 10 of the Master Teacher Tournament didn't signify a straight pass into the Master Teacher Academy. Rather, it would be more apt to consider it as an opportunity to take on the entrance examinations, and if they were to clear it, they would be allowed to enter the academy. The topic of the entrance examination would change each year. It had been an obstacle course in some years, formation deciphering in others, and even an academic examination was within the list of possibilities as well. And for this year, it was hunting. The location of the hunt would be at the Leiyuan Peak of Hongyuan mountain range. The Leiyuan Peak was a huge mountain in proximity to the Master Teacher Academy. Its exceptionally steep terrain made it extremely difficult to scale it. Even consonant spirit realm experts would find it laborious to travel to the top, let alone hunt. The duration was 1 day, and depending on the number of spirit beasts hunted, one would be allocated a set number of points, and this would be reflected as one's result at the end of the examination. To pass, one would have to hunt at least one clarifying turbidity realm pinnacle spirit beast. Even though the powerful physique of spirit beasts allowed them to challenge cultivators possessing higher cultivation realms, the examination shouldn't be too difficult considering the formidable might that the master teacher elites from the various regions possess. Not to mention, most of the examinees were at the consonant spirit realm as well, so defeating a clarifying turbidity realm advanced stage spirit beast shouldn't be a problem at all. However, the problem was that the number of spirit beasts across the entire mountain was limited. Furthermore, once the spirit beasts realized that they were being hunted, they would surely flee and hide. On top of that, there was no limit to the number of spirit beasts one could hunt, and if one were to exceed the passing criteria, they could exchange the excess points for academic credits. Thus, the competition among examinees would be extremely intense. To make things worse, clarifying turbidity realm spirit beasts weren't the only ones roaming the mountain. There were also consonant spirit realm spirit beasts, cosmos bridge realm spirit beasts, and even some beyond that. Thus, on top of hunting, they had to prevent themselves from being hunted as well. Casualties were anticipated in this examination, and this was the norm for the entrance examination for the Master Teacher Academy. This examination served to test the examinee's resilience, strength, adaptability, eye of discernment, and various other aspects. Only the strongest of experts would be able to emerge victorious amidst the group. Those who were weaker physically or mentally would surely find themselves breaking down in the midst of the examination and eventually return in tragic defeat. This examination would eliminate the weak and frail from the group. Those who failed to meet the mark would be disqualified and forced to leave. So as to increase the success rate and avoid danger, some of the examinees from various regions had decided to form an alliance. With more people in their alliance, they would be able to vie for spirit beasts from other students and stand their ground against stronger spirit beasts. However, an alliance also had its downfall as well. While it was definitely safer to remain in a group, more people operating together also meant that the group would be easily detected by the spirit beasts. As such, spirit beasts would choose to stay out of their way, making their hunting highly inefficient. On top of that, distribution was a problem as well. After all, it was questionable whether the alliance would be able to hunt sufficient spirit beasts to go around the group. Thus, it was very possible that there would be some who would be tragically disqualified in the alliance. As such, the priority in the distribution of spirit beasts became an extremely important problem in the formation of alliance. All factions in an alliance would be hoping to gain this priority in distribution. The group from Huanyu Empire was the same as well. In order to stand their ground against other competitors, they decided to ally themselves with the master teachers from a Tier 2 empire, Jinhai Empire, and both sides had agreed on determining the priority of distribution based on the results of their strength. After hearing the explanation, Zhongxian immediately understood the situation, and he hurriedly asked, "How many more duels are there?" If they were only halfway through the battle, he might still be able to salvage the situation. Chapter 694. A single finger. The number of duels we have decided on is 10, and the victor of 6 rounds will be given the priority of distribution, Hongsha said. Han Ling is currently fighting the 10th round. Since it has reached the 10th round, it means that the wins and losses are equal on both sides. Hearing that it was the 10th round, Zhongxian heaved a sigh of relief. After all, there would be no point continuing the competition after the 6th round as the victor had already been decided. Given that they had reached the 10th round, it could only mean that both sides were equal. That isn't the case. Hongsha's face reddened in embarrassment. We have fought 10 rounds, but we have lost in every single one of them, and to the same person at that. Lost to the same person? You mean that the person on stage has already fought 10 rounds, but he hasn't been defeated yet? Zhongxian's eyes widened in shock. That's right. Hongsha covered his face in embarrassment, and the others were too ashamed to raise their heads. They had gone up one by one to challenge the man on the stage, and yet all of them suffered tragic defeats. And more importantly, the man on the stage wasn't their strongest fighter. Speechless, Zhongxian was just about to speak when a dull thud sounded from the stage. Peng! Han Ling was sent flying out of the ring and crashed into the courtyard. All 10 matches have concluded. How in the world do I salvage this situation? Looking at the fellow moaning in pain on the ground, Zhongxian's eyelids twitched. He thought that he might still be able to reverse the situation, but with all 10 matches finished, what else could he do at this point? Was he supposed to challenge the master teachers from Jinhai Empire once more? But the other party had no reason to accept. All right, the 10 matches have already concluded, and you didn't win a single match at all. What else do you have to say? After sending Han Ling flying, the man on the stage gazed down at the group below with a smirk on his face. The faces of Hongsha and the others turned red. If they had at least won 2 to 3 matches, they wouldn't be so ashamed. They could have explained it as due to their strongest fighter being absent. But all of them actually lost to the same person. How were they supposed to explain this? Furthermore, if Zhongsha wasn't an opponent for the other party as well, wouldn't they be embarrassed further? Zhongsha might possess incredible talent, but in the end, his cultivation realm was only at clarifying turbidity realm pinnacle. Winning against this fellow who was able to single-handedly win against 10 of them without the slightest loss of breath seemed unlikely to them. Not to mention, this fellow wasn't their strongest fighter. Zhongxian's breakthrough to consonant spirit realm only occurred after the corpse incident, so none of them are aware of it. You don't have anything else to say, right? Since that's the case, then as per our agreement, we will be going by Senior Feng's arrangement. The grey-robed young man chuckled before turning around and clasping his fist. Senior Feng. A white-robed young man then walked forward. His aura felt significantly stronger than the grey-robed young man. At closer examination, Zhongxian realized that the white-robed man had already reached half-cosmos bridge realm, and he could possibly make the full breakthrough at any moment. The grey-robed young man who defeated 10 of them was already extremely powerful in the eyes of Ruo Huangongzi and the others, but even so, he was still far from matching up to this white-robed young man. In a sense, Huanyu Empire's loss was inevitable. Even if they had been able to defeat the grey-robed young man, they would have never been able to win against the white-robed young man. Since we are allies, let's clarify the terms of our agreement first. Standing on the stage, Senior Feng gazed at the Huanyu Empire group and declared forcefully, 3 days from now, at the start of the hunt, all of you will listen to my arrangements, and priority will be given to our Jinhai Empire regarding the hunted beast. However, you need not worry. As long as we stand united as one, it is not a problem for all of us to pass the entrance examination. They will be given priority over all if the hunted beasts. What if we don't hunt sufficient spirit beasts? Wouldn't all of us be disqualified then? Even though they understood that the leader of the alliance would be given additional privileges, they still couldn't help but feel frustrated upon hearing those words. The benefit of an alliance was that they would be able to steer clear of danger before formidable spirit beasts, as well as vie for prey against other alliances. However, there was also a clear disadvantage to it as well. Take this case for example. The group from Huanyu Empire had no say in the distribution of the hunted beasts at all. Should the number of beasts hunted within the duration prove to be insufficient, they would all stand to be eliminated. Why? Are you reluctant to accept this arrangement? Given the strength of our senior Feng, it's your blessing to be able to ally with us. Seeing the indignant looks of the group below, the grey-robed young man harumphed coldly. In truth, given their strength, they could easily pass the examination even without allying with Huanyu Empire. However, what they were aiming for was beyond that. The teachers and elders of the academy would be paying attention to this entrance examination, and if they were to show an outstanding performance in this examination, they could win their favor and possibly become their disciples. This would make their lives in the academy smooth sailing. You. Hearing the other party's words, everyone's faces flushed in anger. They wanted to retort, but there wasn't a single word they could say. After all, it was the truth that they were weaker than the other party. I am indeed reluctant to accept this agreement. Just as everyone was placed in a difficult position, Zhong Xian's nonchalant voice suddenly resonated through the air. Huh? What do you mean by that? Does Huanyu Empire intend to renege on its promise? Seeing someone speaking up at this moment, the grey-robed young man frowned. They were all master teachers, respectable figures of society. Given that they had agreed on everything beforehand, it would be shameful for the group from Huanyu Empire to back out just because it had lost. If that were to really happen, they would become a huge laughingstock. We won't renege on our promise, but I do have a suggestion. Zhong Xian said. A suggestion? Zhong Xian replied, that's right. I am also a master teacher from Huanyu Empire, and I am unaware of your previous duel. However, since the results are already out, there's nothing much that I can say. However, I would like an equal distribution of spirit beast. Equal distribution? We have won the position of the alliance leader fair and square, why should we agree to an equal distribution? The grey-robed young man sneered. I understand. Since we have lost the duel, it is indeed difficult for you to accept an equal distribution. How about this then? Zhong Xian placed his hands behind his back and smiled. If your senior Feng can withstand 3 strikes from me, I won't speak about the matter regarding fair distribution anymore. You will have free reign over the distribution. In fact, we won't even ask for you to give a single spirit beast to us. What did you say? The grey-robed young man narrowed his eyes. This fellow actually challenged senior Feng to a fight. He had seen plenty of arrogant people, but never had he seen such blind arrogance before. Do you know how strong our senior Feng is? Do you think that you are qualified to challenge him? 3 moves. I doubt you could defeat him in 1,000,000 moves. Why? You don't have the confidence to accept the challenge? I understand. Since that's the case, what about 1 move? If your senior Feng can withstand a single blow from me, our group will not take a single hunted spirit beast from you. Noticing the other party's hesitation, Zhong Xian thought that the other party found his terms unfair, so he changed his offer. The heck? Upon seeing the fellow's earnest expression, the grey-robed young man nearly exploded in rage. Senior Feng's vision also darkened, and he nearly fainted on the spot. His cultivation had already reached half Cosmos Bridge, allowing him to fight on par with even some of the Grade 2 students. And yet, this fellow from Huanyu Empire was actually claiming that he could defeat him in a single blow? What kind of a joke was this? Just as the duo was about to die from anger, Ruo Huan Gongzi, Luo Xian, and the others nearly spurted blood. They knew that Zhong Shi would surely stir some trouble here, but who could have known that he would actually utter such words? They couldn't even defeat the grey-robed young man, and Zhong Shi was actually betting that he would defeat senior Feng in a single strike. How could that be possible? If they were to lose, wouldn't they be working for nothing for Jinhai Empire in the entrance examination? All of them would be disqualified then. Is a single blow still too much for you all? Sigh, since that's the case, I'll just use a single finger then. Surely that should be fine with you. I don't think I can go any further than that. If you still don't dare to accept the challenge with this, there's nothing more I can do. After all, I couldn't possibly defeat you without moving, right? Alright, actually that's not impossible, but it'll reveal my means as a soul oracle or poison master. I should maintain a low profile. Since it was his first time being in Hongyuan Empire, Zhongxian thought that it would be best for him to proceed warily and not reveal too many trump cards. Thus, if the other party were to reject this offer as well, he would be really put at a spot. Pu. The grey-robed young man and Senior Feng nearly puked blood. Too much your head. Besides, what is with that troubled expression on your face? Am I that weak in your eyes that you will feel troubled over it? Fine. I would like to see how you can defeat me with a single finger. Senior Feng roared in anger, unable to hold back his rage anymore. Senior. Allow me to teach this arrogant fellow a lesson. Seeing his senior flying into a rage, the grey-robed man hurriedly stepped forward. There's no need for that. I want to see how strong the person who dares to utter such arrogant words is. Senior Feng spoke coldly as his sharp gaze fell on the arrogant young man before him. Perhaps, the arrogant young man might have something up his sleeves that allowed him to speak such arrogant words. Thus, Senior Feng was interested to see whether the other party was simply uttering rubbish or really possessed the capability to do so. With narrowed eyes, Senior Feng flung his sleeves furiously and said, "This friend over here, come up onto the stage. If you can win against me, we'll drop the matter regarding the alliance. However, if you lose, you'd better remember your words. Every single hunted beast in the entrance examination shall go to us." Fine. Hearing the other party agree to his challenge, Zhongxian walked up onto the stage. Can Zhongshe win? I don't know either. Seeing Zhongshe settling on such a disadvantageous bet with the other party, everyone glanced at one another doubtfully. Defeating Senior Feng with a single finger. Was Zhongshe serious? Their loss might have sent him into a panic, but even so, this bet was way too extreme. Senior Feng, allow me to teach this fellow a lesson in your stead. Seeing Senior Feng flying into such a huge rage, the grey-robed young man quickly stepped forward and said, "It won't be too late for Senior to face him after my loss." Given the arrogant words that the other party had uttered, there was a possibility that he might really possess the strength to back up his words. To be safe, the grey-robed young man thought that he should test the waters first. If the other party turned out to be weak, he would simply pummel the other party to get even for his provocations. On the other hand, if the other party turned out to be strong, Senior Feng could at least prepare himself. Senior Feng hesitated upon hearing those words. However, at that moment, the young man impatiently declared, "If you are still scared, why don't the both of you face me together? I'll just use 2 fingers." Hearing those words, Senior Feng and the grey-robed young man nearly fainted. "There's no need for that. Let me see how strong you are." With a cold harumph, Senior Feng charged forward. The other party's words were simply too infuriating. He was afraid that he might just die from fury if he were to allow the other party to talk any more. Stepping forcefully against the ground, he dashed forward as though a charging ferocious beast. Releasing his full might as a half-Cosmos Bridge Realm expert, the wind raged furiously, and in that instant, his charge felt reminiscent of a massive stampede, inducing helplessness in those facing it. How powerful! The eyebrows of Hong Shi and the others twitched. Even they would find it hard to withstand such a powerful attack with their cultivation of Cosmos Bridge Realm primary stage. They hurriedly turned their gazes to the young man, curious to see how he would deal with it. Before their astonished gazes, the young man shook his head before raising a single finger and pointing it forward leisurely. Chapter 695. Defeated with a single finger. He's really going to fight with a single finger? Feng Shu, Luo Shu, and Hong Shi pulled their hair in frenzy. Given the other party's strength, even Cosmos Bridge primary realm experts like us will find it hard to withstand that attack. It has been only a month since you reached clarifying turbidity realm, and yet you intend to face such an attack with just a single finger? You must be mad. Furthermore, Even if you are just using a single finger, surely you can move faster than that. Your leisurely and unsteady movements are reminiscent of a dying granny. Are you sure you are fighting? This senior Feng's movements are as swift as a leopard's. Even if your cultivation has advanced significantly in the past month, and you could defeat the other party with a single finger, surely you need to gather some force and move way faster than that. It is one thing for your finger to be completely devoid of skill, but to move so slowly on top of that. Even the weakest cultivator could dodge it easily. Not only were Hong Shi and the others on the verge of fainting, the mouths of Luo Xian and the others were also twitching violently. They had heard the content of bet clearly just now. Given the stakes on the line, shouldn't Zhongshe act more seriously? With such speed, one couldn't even kill a fly. Seeing Zhong Xian's slow movement, the grey-robed young man harumphed coldly. To think that I thought that you might be a formidable foe. In the end, you are just a braggart. It was just a moment ago that the other party arrogantly boasted about defeating Senior Feng with a single finger. Who knew that he would turn out to be so weak? Do you think that you can stop Senior Feng's charge with such a weak finger? Senior Feng could probably smash you to your grave with a single slap. Just as he was sneering within, he suddenly heard a commotion in the surroundings. Something is wrong, look. Hearing everyone's anxious exclamations, the grey-robed man frowned. He hurriedly turned his gaze to the stage, and his eyes immediately widened in shock. He thought that the other party's slow finger would be easily crushed by Senior Feng's charge. But who knew that Senior Feng would actually slow his charge instead? There was a grim expression on his face at this moment, as if he was facing some formidable foe. He tried swerving to the side, seemingly trying to avoid the finger. However, right after taking half a step, the trembling finger turned toward him, and his eyebrows immediately shot up in alarm. Thus, he tried leaping to the left. But before he could make the movement, the finger pointed straight toward the direction of his intended movement. Upon seeing the direction of the finger, Senior Feng's face paled as if he had seen a ghost. Cold sweat flowed from his forehead, and he hurriedly tried to dodge to another direction. However, the same sight only happened again. It felt like Senior Feng was leaping to the commands of the finger, as though he was being controlled remotely. The sight of the scene was extraordinarily bizarre. Did that Senior Feng suffer a stroke? That seems to be the case. Ruo Huan Gongzi, Luo Zhao, and the others were completely bewildered by the sight before them. Zhongshe's finger seemed to be completely devoid of strength whatsoever. Why would Senior Feng leap around the spot just because that finger was pointing toward him? Not to mention, to be even sweating profusely before it. Did he take the wrong medicine today, or did he see a ghost somewhere? Even couples who had danced for many years didn't share such harmony. Coming to a realization, Hongshi's body stiffened. No, he isn't suffering from a stroke. Rather, it seems like Zhongshe has found the other party's flaws. His movements might be slow, but it accurately points toward the flaws of the other party. Zhongshe has not struck yet, but if he were to shoot a surge of zhenqi from the tip of his finger, that Senior Feng would surely be defeated immediately, or perhaps, he might even die from the attack. That's right. Feng Shu and Luo Shi nodded in agreement as well. As 5-star master teachers, their eyes of discernment were far above Luo Xian and the others, thus allowing them to see through the situation. Clearly, Zhongshe seemed to have seen through the other party's flaws and was pointing straight at them. Fearful that he might be struck, his opponent could only leap around to dodge. In a battle among experts, the most feared situation was for one's weakness or Mingmen to be discovered by one's opponents. Senior Feng might be strong, but he still had to think twice before rushing in under such circumstances. Senior. Realizing something was amiss in this situation as well, the grey-robed young man clenched his fists tightly in worry. He knew how powerful Senior Feng was. Even the average Cosmos Bridge Realm primary stage experts might not necessarily be a match for him. Yet, at this moment, he was actually leaping around under the control of the other party's finger. This clearly reflected the other party's strength. To be able to see through his senior's flaws in an instant and force him into defense, how powerful must one's eye of discernment be? Damn it! While everyone was astonished by this situation, Senior Feng was grinding his teeth together in anger. Just as Hongshe had guessed, even though Zhongxian's finger moved extremely slowly, it pointed straight towards Senior Feng's Ming men. As long as Senior Feng dared to advance forward, the other party could easily curb him just by shooting out a surge of zhenqi. Senior Feng had a strong foundation, and in the course of the battle, he had already changed his movement technique 5 times and battle technique 8 times. But even so, the other party's finger was still accurately aimed at the Ming men of his techniques. There was no one here who could withstand a single slap from him. It seemed the other party was going easy on them when he said that he would only use a single finger. Otherwise, if the other party were to utilize his fist, Senior Feng could very possibly have died on the spot. Thank you for your magnanimity. Just as the grey-robed young man was overwhelmed with astonishment, a feeble voice suddenly sounded. Lowering his head, he saw Senior Feng opening his eyes painfully. Even though the other party had struck Senior Feng's Ming men, it seemed that he had held back. As such, Senior Feng's injuries weren't as severe as expected. It is just a spar, so there's no need to go all out. Zhongxian chuckled lightly. As fellow master teachers, there was no need for them to fight each other to the death. It would suffice to just defeat the other party. Actually, just as the grey-robed young man was thinking, if Zhongxian truly had intended to deal with Senior Feng, given his immense might of 10 million ding, he could easily slay the other party with just a flick of his finger. There was no need for him to go through so much trouble at all. Since I have lost, we'll call off the alliance. Gritting his teeth, Senior Feng struggled to his feet and walked out of the main hall. To think that he, the #1 genius of Jinhai Empire, would be unable to match a single finger of the other party. He would only embarrass himself by staying here. Since that was the case, he decided to leave that instant. We won. That formidable-looking Senior Feng was actually unable to match a single finger from Zhongshe. Seeing the group from Jinhai Empire depart, a huge commotion broke out amidst the group from Huanyu Empire. Luo Xian and Bai Jianghai glanced at one another, and bitter smiles surfaced on their lips. It seemed like their gap with the other party had grown much larger than before. Back in Myriad Kingdom City, while they might not be a match for Zhongshe, they were still able to cross some blows with him. But now, if they were to rush at Zhongxian with all their might, they would probably meet the same fate as Senior Feng, defeated by a mere finger. Consonant Spirit Realm Pinnacle. Zhongshe, you have reached Consonant Spirit Realm Pinnacle. Hongshe's eyes lit up in agitation. Even though Zhongshe's attack ended in an instant, he still received a clear glimpse of the other party's strength. Consonant Spirit Realm Pinnacle. Back in Myriad Kingdom Alliance, Zhongshe had made a breakthrough to Consonant Spirit Realm. It had only been around 2 months since then, and not only had Zhongxian successfully made the breakthrough to Consonant Spirit Realm, he had even reached the pinnacle of the realm. His rate of improvement was too astonishing. The hurdle to Consonant Spirit Realm had trapped innumerable cultivators, but not only did Zhongshe manage to cross the hurdle in just 2 months, he even raised his cultivation by 1 entire realm. How in the world did he cultivate to achieve such an astounding growth rate? Consonant Spirit Realm Pinnacle? In truth, most of them had intended to get even with Zhongxian once he returned to the party. After all, back at Huanyu Empire, many of them had suffered greatly under Zhongxian's hands. However, upon hearing those words, a strong feeling of helplessness loomed over them. How could they possibly rival this monster? Even if they were to guzzle down pills, they still couldn't keep up with the other party's pace. Most likely, the gap between them would only grow greater and greater in the future, and one day, the other party's back would disappear completely from their sight. It's just a stroke of good luck. Zhongxian chuckled. Hongshe, didn't my students come here along with you? Where are they? Since the group from Huanyu Empire have arrived here, Zheng Yang, Wang Ying, and the others were meant to be there as well. They. Hearing those words, Hongshe subconsciously glanced at Fengshe and the others and hesitated. Seeing Hongshe's response, Zhongxian frowned, and his face darkened. What happened to them? Chapter 696. King Huai Manor. Zheng Yang and the others were his direct disciples, and they had accompanied him all the way here from Tianxian Kingdom. They had braved many life-threatening situations together, and Zhongxian already viewed them as his closest kin. If anything were to happen to them, he didn't mind wiping the entire Hongyuan Empire off the face of the world. If he needed to, he would even punch a gaping hole through the heavens. Anyone who meant them harm would have to suffer his wrath. Zhongshe, don't worry. They are safe. Seeing the latter's awful expression, Hongshe immediately realized that his hesitation had caused a huge misunderstanding. Thus, he hurriedly explained, however, they were taken away by the men of the King Huai Manor yesterday, and we dare not stop them. Zhongshe had entrusted his direct disciples to his care, only to find them missing upon his return. Anyone would be angry when faced with such a situation. It was already incredible that Zhongshe could still retain his rationality in this situation. King Huai Manor? Zhongxian frowned. He had never heard of this name before. Why would the other party take his direct disciples away? I am not too sure about what's going on either, Hongshe said, and then hesitated for a brief moment before further explaining. King Huai, Yu Longxian, is the blood-related uncle of the incumbent emperor of Hongyuan Empire, thus making him the imperial uncle of the current era. Given his esteemed position, there's only a single man throughout the entire Hongyuan Empire who stands above him, the emperor himself. Even Princess Yu Fei, whom we met before, would have to address him as Grandpa Xian. The men from the King Huai Manor came over yesterday, and they insisted on taking them over to their manor to stay for a few days. Considering their respectful attitude and their esteemed standing in Hongyuan Empire, it didn't seem like they were harboring any malicious intentions, so I didn't stop them. Stay for a few days? Zhongxian was perplexed. He was certain that he had no ties with King Huai Yu Longxian. As for his students, Zheng Yang, Wang Ying, Yuan Dao, and Liu Yang, only Wang Ying came from a distinguished background. However, it could only be considered as a distinguished clan in Tianxian Kingdom. Yuan Dao was an orphan, and he had been roaming the streets ever since he was young. Unable to find a proper cultivation technique manual, he could only fumble his way through his cultivation. As a result, even though he managed to pass the Hongyuan Academy's entrance examination back then, his examination results were the very lowest of the entire cohort. The same went for Zheng Yang and Liu Yang as well. Since none of them could possibly be related to a king of a Tier 1 empire, why would the latter take them to his manor? This was way too bizarre. A thought suddenly surfaced in Zhongxian's mind, and he immediately asked worriedly, "When did you all arrive? Did they cause any trouble?" His students and his butler were true troublemakers, and this was especially so for the latter. With Yang Shi serving as his backing, he put on a brazen attitude regardless of whom he was standing before. Could they have offended the King Huai Manor somehow, thus resulting in the latter finding an excuse to take them to the manor? We only arrived yesterday afternoon. As soon as we arrived, we immediately headed toward this residence, so there is no way they could have caused any trouble. Hongshe frowned as he went through his memory to see if he might have missed out something. But they did. Did you forget what the plump student of Zhongshe did before arriving at this residence? Fengshe suddenly interjected. Under Fengshe's prompt, Hongshe also recalled the matter and quickly explained it. Plump student. Oh. Yuan Dao did fight with someone yesterday, but that was a small matter. Besides, the other party was an ordinary person who had no ties with the King Huai Manor. Hearing that Yuan Dao had caused some kind of trouble, Zhongxian immediately asked with a livid expression, "What happened?" Actually, Yuan Dao is not to be blamed for this matter. Right after we arrived, an itinerant cultivator came to provoke us into dueling with him. Thus, Yuan Dao stood forward to teach that person a lesson. Due to this matter, Yuan Dao sustained some injuries and shed some blood. However, after Yuan Dao defeated the itinerant cultivator, the latter gave him some recovery pills in compensation for the matter. Judging from that person's dress-up, it seemed like he is a merchant. Could the both matters be related? Hongshe frowned as he recalled the happenings yesterday. The person who fought against Yuan Dao was an ordinary merchant, and his cultivation was also SOSO. It was unlikely for him to be related to King Huai Manor, so Hongshe didn't think too much into the matter. However, the frown on Zhongxian's forehead deepened after hearing of the matter. Duel? And Yuan Dao was injured at that. Yuan Dao, Zheng Yang, and the others might be brazen, But they still knew better than to get into conflict with someone in a foreign land, especially when their teacher was not around. Furthermore, with the awakening of Yuan Dao's unique constitution, his defense had reached an absurd level. Making him bleed was no easy task at all. Could this matter really be related to King Huai Manor? Otherwise, there was no other plausible explanation as to why the other party would take his students away. Unable to come to a conclusion, the frown on Zhong Xian's forehead tightened. Eventually, he turned to Hong She and asked, "Where is King Huai Manor?" "Zhong She intends to head to King Huai Manor to find your students." Hong She was taken aback. Given that King Huai was the imperial uncle of Hongyuan Empire, his manor would surely be well protected by top-notch formations and Saint Realm experts. It would be extremely dangerous for Zhong Xian to head there alone without any preparation. "Just tell me where it is," Zhong Xian harumphed. While his cultivation realm was lower than Hong She's, the legendary feats he had accomplished, his extraordinary disposition, as well as the powerful aura he carried made it difficult for anyone to stand against him. Yes. Knowing that Zhong Xian's mind was made up and that nothing he said could change the other party's mind, Hong She could only relent. "King Huai Manor is not too far away from here. After leaving the Academic Sea, turn left and walk several dozen kilometers down the streets. You should see it then." Saying so, Hong She pointed in a direction. But before he could finish his words, a shrill call suddenly resounded in the air, and the massive great violet-winged beast landed on the courtyard. Zhong Xian leaped onto its back, and the duo immediately flew in the direction in which Hong She was pointing toward. Zhong She, not expecting Zhong She to actually dive straight into action, Hong She's face paled in fright. Who was King Huai? The uncle of the incumbent emperor, the highest standing official in the Hongyuan royal court. Even the emperor would have to show him some respect. And yet, Zhong She actually rode an aerial spirit beast over to his manor. It wouldn't be a joke if he were to offend a person of such standing. "Ruo Huan, accompany me to find Princess Yu Fei now. She is probably the only one who can salvage the situation now." Gritting his teeth, Hong She beckoned for Ruo Huan Gongzi to go along with him. The only royalty they were acquainted with at the moment was Yu Fei. The most they could hope for at this moment was for the latter to help Zhong She on account of the time they had spent together in Huanyu Empire. The great violet-winged beast was extremely swift. From the back of the beast, Zhong Xian scanned the buildings below, and before long, a massive manor came into sight. The manor was resplendently designed, and many of the guards on the compound were all dressed in golden armor. Even before getting into proximity, Zhong Xian could already feel an aura of invulnerability from it. This should be it. After circling around the area to further assess the situation, Zhong Xian instructed the great violet-winged beast to land on the ground. He didn't dash right into the other party's manor, after all. The other party was an imperial uncle of the state. Without ascertaining the situation of Wang Ying and the others, it was best not to offend the other party first. Landing on an empty street several hundred meters away, Zhong Xian changed into a brand new master-teacher robe before walking to the gates of the manor. At the entrance, he saw a huge plaque with 3 grand words, "King Huai Manor," written in gold. The words seemed to be dancing around, as though they would break free of the surface of the plaque and soar into the greater world any moment now. This is probably the work of a 6-star painter, Zhong Xian assessed. Considering the incredible skill and astounding disposition behind those words, the painter of it had to be at least at 6-star. There were 4 guards standing at the entrance. Each of them was dressed in steel armor, and their presence exuded a strong pressure on one's soul. Transcendent Mortal 6-Dan Cosmos Bridge Realm experts. Zhong Xian narrowed his eyes. He didn't expect even the guards to be Cosmos Bridge Realm experts as well. That would mean that their cultivation realms were even higher than his. An expert of this caliber would at least be an esteemed official or a commander of an army of several thousand in Huanyu Empire. Yet, in Hongyuan Empire, they were only an ordinary entrance guard. Huaiwang Manor was indeed powerful. It was no wonder Hong She was worried. Entering this place was no different from venturing into a lion's den. But so what if that was the case? If the other party had malicious intentions toward Yuan Dao, Zheng Yang, and the others, even if he was a member of the royal family, Zhongxian was determined to cause a huge uproar. If it came down to it, he could also bring out his otherworldly demon puppets to wreak havoc. With 20 Saint Realm experts with nigh invincible defense and no lack of stamina along with the unfathomable vicious, he was confident that he could easily destroy the entire King Huai Manor. Taking in a deep breath, Zhongxian walked up to the gate. Seeing Zhongxian walk over, a guard raised his spear and harumphed. Our King Huai Manor forbids the approach of any unrelated personnel. I am Master Teacher Zhongxian, and I am here to pay respect to King Huai. I hope that you can relay the message. Zhongxian took out an identity scroll and passed it over. Before confirming the other party's intentions, it was best not to offend them first. Master Teacher. The guard assessed Zhongxian doubtfully before grabbing the identity scroll. There were only 4 words written on the identity scroll: Master Teacher Zhongxian. There was nothing on his rank at all. 4-star Master Teacher might be the strongest existence in Myriad Kingdom Alliance, but in a Tier 1 empire, it would be insufficient for him to meet someone of King Huai's caliber. If Zhongxian were to write it down, it was highly likely that he would be denied entry immediately. The guards wouldn't even bother showing his identity scroll to their boss. The guard passed the identity scroll to the other guards to see as well, and they were all perplexed when they saw the content as well. One of them spoke up hesitantly. May I know what Zhongshi's Master Teacher rank is? Are you an acquaintance of our old master? Have you made an appointment with him? Since there was nothing written on it, they could only ask the person in question. Naturally, a person of their master's standing wouldn't meet a person just because the other party had provided an identity scroll. I have never met King Huai before, but I am a close buddy of Princess Yufei. Oh, Pavilion Master Mo Gaoyuan is also an old friend of mine. Zhongxian chuckled. If he were to say that he was a 4-star master teacher, he would immediately be chased away. Thus, he could respond to the other party's questions in a roundabout manner, hoping that the other party wouldn't pursue the matter. But in any case, what he was saying was the truth as well. He had gone through a life-and-death situation with Yufei, so it wouldn't be going too far to address her as a close buddy. On the other hand, he had met Mo Gaoyuan, and the latter had expressed goodwill toward him. Thus, it wasn't exactly wrong to call them old friends as well. Moshe's friend. As expected, upon hearing those words, the faces of the guards immediately turned grim. Mo Gaoyuan was the pavilion master of the Hongyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, a 6-star pinnacle master teacher. Only another 6-star master teacher would dare to address him as a friend. Just that, was it even possible for a 6-star master teacher to be so young? Zhongshe, this way please. We will report your arrival to our old master. Even though the guards were doubtful, they didn't dare take any chances. Thus, they quickly invited Zhongxian into the residence. The means of a master teacher should never be underestimated. While the fellow before them might look young, it might not necessarily an accurate indicator of his age. Furthermore, regardless of whether the other party was truly a 6-star master teacher or not, just the fact that he was a master teacher would have to make them think twice before offending him. Thank you. Seeing that the guards were going to report his presence to their old master, Zhongxian heaved a sigh of relief. With a nod, he followed the guards into the manor. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.